Right, this is episode 38 of Listen Loco. The joke I would make now would be like, what we'll do is our usual few minutes of banter before introducing the guest. It doesn't exist, therefore it's just only going to be that for the whole episode. No, obviously this is a rare two-man episode. You know, an actual mistake I have realised though, Loco, is I fell in the same trap myself many, many times before. I nearly always have this issue, which is whenever you do shows, like, I always made it a principle of like Summoning Insight and other shows I did, that in theory, if the show is actually good enough, you can do it with just you and the co-host. Like, you don't need to have a guest. You can have a really excellent episode that doesn't have the guest on. Because, for example, you know, some guests, you get them on the show, they don't end up talking very much, or maybe they're just someone who doesn't actually have a lot of ideas, or sometimes you get unlucky and they don't like vibe with your sense of humor or whatever. You know, there's a lot of ways it can go wrong, and actually sometimes you can have an episode that's worse for having a guest on it. It's kind of like they end up, because obviously the conversation has to sort of join up somehow, they can drag the show down. So the flaw is, in theory, you should do it where it's like you have the guest on if it's the right person. But the problem is, because it feels like if you have a guest on, you always think you're going to get more views. And if you have a guest on, it makes it a lot easier to direct the conversation. You just get into the habit where, by default, you just always have a guest. And you just always try to get someone.
Yeah.
But I have actually noticed, if the show, like I said, gets established enough, you can actually have very good two-man episodes. Like, that's what happened. That's actually when I knew, by the way, that Summoning Insight was huge.
Yeah.
Sadly, it was only in the last sort of year of doing it. I had a whole bunch where, because of like scheduling timing, me and Monty just couldn't get it done. But I was in Korea at the time, so me and him could obviously just both do the same time zone. And dude, we had loads of episodes that just the two of us did that sometimes had more views than any of the ones with the guests on.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we do shows, sometimes I feel like I have to include the guests kind of in the show and like let them speak, because like we'll rant, like you and I will rant a lot.
Sure.
Depends on the guest we have though. Like with player guest, I had to host a lot more and just like sit back. But with casters, like, man, Riot casters are actually super well trained. I think every single Riot caster we had, like EU or NA, they killed it and they talk really, really well on the show.
It's because a lot of players, unfortunately, don't realize, like there's some players, first of all, will only speak when spoken to, like unless you explicitly ask them, so what do you think about X? They'll just sit there like, and they don't seem to get the concept that like, when you're on the show, you're just on the show, mate. Like, if you want to start talking, yeah, jump in. If he says something, you just jump on. Because the reason our show is a bit unique in that sense is like neither of us is really the overall host, because we all try to give our opinions. We're all members of the show, so it's a little bit more fluid in that sense. I'd agree it's a bit trickier with some players, but that, you know, the problem with that is that there are some players who aren't that interesting with their answers, where it is still worth having them on because they're a really big name player. So even if they give a sort of like 70% of what would be a great show guest, it's probably still worth gambling and having them sometimes. Plus, every now and then you get super lucky and you get the guy you think is going to be absolute crap and they end up being really good. Very rarely, admittedly, on that one.
I mean, just because you're good at clicking buttons and moving your mouth, it doesn't mean you're going to be good on a show. And that's what video game says.
That's also why casters, this is the reason why, Loco, you've probably learned this from this show. Doing this show has taught you lots of subtle things you did not know about talk show hosts. Like, for example, I bet you now understand why half to, you know, 1 out of every 3 one of my talk shows traditionally is like a journalist or someone who's like an analyst behind this, you know, someone who's not a famous person. They actually, you know, wouldn't be a draw in terms of like, oh my God, this person's on the show, you click. But they can all talk about the game. They all have every opinion in the book, because those are people whose job is to have opinions about the game and to watch all the games. So even if they're not the person who's going to pop off and be the marquee name, you know they're going to make like for a good show, or they're going to make for a unique show, like one you haven't had. Like, oh, it's a different guy. Like if you have like, a good obvious example would be people like Kelsey, people like Emily Rand. Like, they might not get the viewers, but if someone's into their sort of thing, they can talk forever.
Yeah, I love Emily. I talked to her this time in LCS, or last weekend in LCS. Really smart, but Emily can be, or not Emily. My bad. I talked to Kelsey, but I feel like Kelsey can be so dry in person and on video. I feel like Kelsey's so much better in writing, and like Kelsey's really smart.
Of course.
But go ahead.
No, you're right.
I mean, yeah, she's really smart, but she can be so dry in person, and I'm so glad she went into coaching and she's using more of her talent there, because she's smart, she's mature, but she's not very entertaining. So I feel like she's way better suited for coaching and like those kind of roles than to be like a content creator or to be like a face in a video.
It's because, unfortunately, it's like the skill set she's worked on, and people probably wouldn't realize it, but like every area you try to go into, it is its own area. Like you have to work just as hard to get really good to do like an interview as you do at writing. Like just because you're the best writer doesn't make you that good. So I've had to put a lot of years in all these things myself. That's why I was able to get like so much sort of like, what would you even describe it as? I'd say it's sort of like a wide base across esports. The whole point is I can't be like deep in every area, but I got it so that I could like go across loads of them at a really good level. And then I have the one that I go super deep on, which is CSGO. Because, you know, obviously I already had the basis for like, I had 10 plus years in that sense. So that was the obvious one to be like a super nerd on. In the other ones, I'm just going more in the angle of like, sadly, you don't have this term in American sports, but like in England, we don't always call the person who's on like the studio show analyzing the game. We don't always call them an analyst. We actually have a term in English. We call them a pundit.
Yeah. And
pundit basically just means like a person who you hire to have an opinion. Like their job is just they follow things and they have an opinion and whatever. And you know, hopefully it's a good one. But like you actually do in football in England have that guy. They're mixed in with the pro players because the idea is, you know, the legendary pro player, like we were talking about this conversation, he might have been a brilliant football player, but he might have fucking, you know, very rudimentary thoughts about the game. Like you should see some of the analysis for football, Loco. You wouldn't believe it, like soccer in Europe, how bad the analysis is. Their studio shows are ass because you have to understand football wasn't based like American sports on like stats and things like this. So they don't have as many like obvious things to promote conversation. So they're doing real like halftime shows where they just like still speculating like, I think the captain will probably go in there and tell him to, you know, like play together, lads. You're playing separately. You got to play together. And you know, just get the ball in the back of the net any way you can. It's like you gotta, and you just want to stop this guy and go, "The fuck are you talking about? This is nothing." Like, even if that meant something to you, like to him, what he really means by that is, you know, it's like the spirit of how you talk to him, and you know, you'd pick the right guy maybe, but he's not transmitting any of that, and he just doesn't know. He sounds like an idiot, doesn't he? Like none of that's analysis. Like, imagine the other guy just going. Well, personally, what I'd do is I'd play a spider formation and I'd trap the winger on it. Like, he'd look like an idiot, wouldn't he? Like, if this other guy isn't even an ex-pro, but he has that skill set, he'd destroy him.
Yeah. Dude, like, a lot of esports and a lot of, like, stuff you talked about, you need so much, like, variation of skill, and you need to be so wide in it. Like, coaching especially, holy fucking shit. It's
sure.
I thought coaching would just be about knowing the game. I barely improved my game knowledge while coaching. A lot of it came from like doing my research or talking to players or talking to other people. Just day-to-day coaching is just maintaining human relationship and maintaining people relationship. And at the like, there was a point where it clicked for me where I'm like, you're not bad at coaching because you're stupid about the game. You're bad at coaching because you don't know how to talk to 18-year-olds and you don't know how to talk to like you don't know how to get buy-in from people. And yeah, that was fucking huge. And let's, I guess, shift into LCS and let's talk about the biggest topic. And well, maybe not the biggest topic, but probably the most like fire one. It was already on top of Reddit. Pr0lly and 100 Thieves and 100 Thieves in general. Pr0lly recently made kind of like a mini apology post saying this season was on me. We had a really great roster, but I couldn't pull it together. And Forgiven actually tweeted about it, where Forgiven said, "Nah, you're the best person. You're the best coach I've ever had." And you just need to be a little bit more just need to have a little bit more discipline. So yeah, let's open up with that. What do you think of the whole Pr0lly making the tweet, and let's go into the whole 100 Thieves situation.
Right, first of all, as someone who in this particular sense, I can actually act as like a character witness because I know Forgiven is a private person as well, and I know what he would say off camera, etc. And by the way, I will just say he's someone where, you know, like there's a famous tweet people sometimes reference on Reddit where Monty made some comment before he left League of Legends where he was like, that's why you don't believe what Koreans say in interviews. Because his point was, you know, if a Korean in an interview explicitly to a Western site, for example, is talking about like a famous Western player, it's quite unlikely that he's going to say what he might say privately, which is like, well, of course that guy's like nowhere near as good as my best teammate or something, you know, and we'd fucking wreck his team. He's probably going to say stuff like, oh, I actually think that Reckless could be the best player, and you know, I also cheer for him when I follow his games, and I have a lot of respect for him. It doesn't matter that if in private they're like, pick this, he's fucking garbage, we'll trash this cunt in lane. Like, you know, they're obviously never going to say that publicly, right? Well, in similar sense, right? One of the things about Forgiven when he makes public statements like that is, I mean, I don't know if he'd admit this, but he's incredibly biased. Like, even more so than a lot of pro players I know. As in, Forgiven's problem is he allows like his personal feelings about the person, not about them as a player or a coach, his personal feelings about them as a person to basically decide whether he thinks they're good or bad. So the reason why I know this is because, so we all know there's examples of really good players that he's flamed and he's been like, actually, you shit or whatever. Meanwhile, this is where you can see that what I'm talking about with this bias. If he's friends with you, you can be terrible and he'll say you're very good. So there was a famous example, right? Early on, when Forgiven first joined the LEC now, there was another team got in the LEC at the same time, which was that team called Super Hot Crew.
Yeah.
And they, at the time, they had a really bad lineup. And they had this guy who was like a French support player who all he could do was like play Thresh. And he wasn't particularly good, by the way. Like he had a pretty crap season. No, that was the years later, mate. You're thinking of like a Fnatic player. This guy was called like Malixia or something like that. He was, and anyway, this guy was a really bad player. But because Forgiven was just personal friends with him, Forgiven would be like shouting him out on like Reddit as a good player. And then when people flamed him, they were like, "Oh, you just don't know, you're a good player," or whatever. Like he was just so biased. And so what I always used to do is this. The way I was a friend to Forgiven is every time he would publicly say like, actually, this player is really good, I'd go, well, yeah, but you already say this guy's good. And then it would sort of like make him realize, oh shit, yeah, that does like ruin my credibility if I say that, doesn't it? Like I can't say this guy who's bad's good if I'm then going to criticize Reckless. And I was like, you do realize that's the problem, is if you have that standard, no one can know what to say. So unfortunately, what I took from that statement is, and obviously I'm someone who thinks Pr0lly is a good coach, that doesn't necessarily mean that Forgiven actually thinks Pr0lly is a really good coach. I would guess he does, because I told you, I have actually heard a lot of pro players who worked with him thought he was a good coach. But that says to me that Forgiven at least respected him. Like Forgiven thought whatever his style was, even if he didn't always agree, he thought, there was a logic to it. That's also a pretty big actual endorsement if you think about it. Forgiven will admit like, the coach that was right, or sometimes I was wrong. That's a pretty good buy-in. That's probably a sign that Pr0lly did a good job with him overall. But like in terms of the other aspect of like Pr0lly apologizing, this is a topic that I have a real hard time with, because as a person, don't believe in lying. I think it's not a good thing to do for anyone. Like I think even when you lie to someone in the short term, you don't do them a favor in the long term. Like for example, if your girlfriend really does look like fat, and you're just telling her, no, you look great, you're not doing her a favor in the long run. And in fact, if she ever finds out that you don't really think she looks good or anything like that, it'll destroy it completely. Now, the point I would make is this. A lot of people would instantly be like, oh, so you're just going to say she's fat? It's like, no, you idiot. There isn't only two options: to lie completely or to only tell the truth. There's a thing that we've had in all of human society for thousands of years, which is the reason why the king doesn't cut everyone's head off. You have tact. You figure out the right way to say it. Or you say, that's why we invented all those things in England, mate. Euphemisms. So you say, you look not bad. What you mean by that is you look terrible. What the fuck are you doing? But I can't say you look great.
I love that you're talking about tact.
I know all about it. Mate, I think about this, right? If I actually behaved to people the way I do on camera, how would I get any interviews?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I be getting flamed all day long? When have you ever seen someone come forwards and do a post like, oh, I feel like I was really used in that interview Thorin did with me, and he was asking all like disrespectful questions? Never happened. When's there ever been an interview I was doing where partway through the interview, the person was like, I'm not answering that question, and hung up the phone? Never happened. And yet you want to know what's mad? In interviews I do, I ask everyone all the questions I really want to know. Like, for example, if I did an interview, I've done it already. If I do an interview with like Reginald, I'm going to ask him stuff like, what about the time when you were just like basically like abusing Wild Turtle on camera? But I wouldn't ask it in that way, would I? I would set it up like, back in the day, you had some incidents with some of your players where you actually seemed to be very unreasonable, and people might even think bullying behavior. So, like, how would you explain that now? Like, the way you ask the question is everything, not the question, isn't it?
Yeah, I do that all the time. I say, analysts say, critics say, when it's
thing. Yeah, it's people. Well, the old joke is people say it means I think, but when someone hears that in their brain, they go like, "Oh, right, it's other people." Yeah. Well, about those people, they're wrong, and that it's just you, isn't it? It's just you most of the time. Sometimes it isn't, but most.
I was doing an interview with Froggen where I was like, people say, and he was like, by people, do you mean you? I was like, yes, including me.
Of course. Yeah.
Going on to the Pr0lly thing, I don't think Pr0lly is lying per se, but I think Pr0lly probably feels like shit, and he probably feels some of the blame is on him. And by saying it publicly, hey, I apologize for this situation, you you don't shift the blame really, but you at least get something off your chest. And like 100 Thieves needs some kind of PR control right now, and there needs to be voices heard within from, I think Pr0lly definitely needs to speak up about things, Afro needs to speak up about things, and Nate Shot or someone from upper management need to make comment on this split, and like they have to clear the air about this split, because they've been having bad press since the whole Meteos Cody Sun thing, and it's not been going well. Like they need to turn kind of the messaging around.
Well, that's also the other thing. It's like, luckily, I would describe it like this. Like, it's definitely not all Pr0lly's fault. It definitely should not all be on him. But luckily, it is the case that even if it isn't his fault, like a player fucked up, a player wasn't listening, he couldn't get through to someone, ultimately, it is his responsibility. There's the difference. It's not his fault, but it is his responsibility. And so in the same way, as it doesn't matter. This is why actually I always did understand why Reginald used to step in when TSM went to shit or started to go off track. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that it wasn't him who was coaching the team that way. It doesn't matter that a player was playing bad or was misplaying. At the end of the day, when the team ends with, like, let's say it never happened during your time, but let's say they'd have finished like 5th place, which could have happened some of those splits. If they'd have finished 5th, at the end of it all, that's where Reginald's team finished. He has to accept that. That's forever on the marker. So what he was actually doing in a misguided way was he was thinking, right, well, the ultimate responsibility does end with me. So if I see things are starting to go wrong, I'll step in and change it because I'm the guy who's going to have to like live with this result forever. So I respect that. It's just that the problem I have with that approach is that it's like, I don't want to remove all responsibility from players. I do think players should be critiqued when they play badly. And I do think, for example, you can be a coach who did a great job and sometimes you didn't have the right roster given to you. The reason why this one's tough in the Pr0lly example is because one thing in esports we don't get to know publicly is how much the coach really had to do with the players he got. Yeah. Like if I found out tomorrow that it was actually Pr0lly who either suggested or accepted the choice to get Hui, then he should take up most of the blame for this split.
Probably.
But if, for example, you know, he just had 2 options and his options were Demonte and Hui, then I can't blame him as much if it went that way, you know. I'd have to know that info to really know how bad a job he probably did.
Okay, so let's actually dive deep into what 100 Thieves' problem was this split. 100 Thieves, their biggest problem was roster building. Their biggest mistakes happened in off-season, not during season. I think with the roster they had, maybe a better coach could have gotten them to 9th or 8th, or maybe into playoff, but it is far below expectation for the amount they spend. So their biggest problem is roster building more so than anything. And I mean, let's start with something that's super fucking...
You think another coach could have got this exact lineup in the playoffs?
I think there's a world... I don't think it's impossible to say that's possible, right? Because this is like a situation where
it's
everything
not impossible,
went wrong.
But put it this way, like if that's why I say I put it to like before the roster happened, like who made those decisions? Because I feel like once this roster was locked in, I will admit, obviously, there's been a lot of parity. So in theory, most teams could have made the playoffs still. But I actually don't think that this 100. I don't know what you could have done as a coach once you had these 5.
Okay.
I don't think you could have done it unless, for example, you could have tried Saligo earlier or something. That's about the only thing I can think of. Aside from that, it looks to me like this lineup, it's never gotten good as far as I can see.
So their biggest problem, I think, was mid lane and jungle. So let's start there. Why aren't you importing mid lane? I genuinely want to ask this question to every single NA roster, like every single GM, anyone that comes in. Why aren't you importing mid lane? The 2 best roles to import are mid and top. Historically and just like game wise, like mid and top can push, have the most agency and can do the most by themselves. And they're the strongest roles to import. So you should always import mid and top unless you have an NA player extremely talented on those roles. And jungle support AD carry are notoriously bad roles to import. And the most important roles are mid and jungle. So everything lines up where every team should be importing mid unless you have a Pobelter unless you have a Prodigy level NA player. If you don't have that, your start of your roster building should start with importing mid. And when 100 Thieves made the decision to get Bang or to import a different role, I think that's where everything unraveled. I just cannot fathom why they thought it was okay to not import mid.
Well, the player this is actually another reason why I think that actually Afromu does deserve a lot of criticism this split. Because come on, when someone's literally coming from your old team to be your teammate on your new team, and you're the captain, and you're the shot caller in the game, the odds that you don't get some saying that, like at the very minimum, that they at least come to you and go, do you think we should do this move? Like, you knew this guy. If not, the other way, like you even saying, actually, I want this guy. Like, let's get him. Like, I know he'll be good. I would even probably guess it's more towards the latter, personally. Like, he was even helping set it up, and he was thinking it was brilliant. Because the reason why that should give Aframu plenty of flame for this split is because he did just play with Huhi for all those years. He should know Huhi's flaws. He should know that this guy basically was never going to be a top tier mid. Like at his absolute best, at his best ever split, he might have been like the fourth best mid. Maybe he had like what, he had some all right times maybe. Other times he was bottom half of the LCS.
Honestly though, in a certain way where I agree with you, blame falls onto Aframu for probably suggesting Hui or asking for Hui, but you're always going to vouch for your friends. And I think it's really hard to separate like work from friendship, and to be like, especially like when you're a player, right? Like, oh, I did great with Huhi, I want my friend on the team. Like CLG kind of fucked him, they gave him Reignover, they gave him Darshan. If he's with me, he's gonna do well. Like, I think it's completely normal for After to have that
just
view.
Shows how perspective works, doesn't it? Because I look back now and I start going, man, they really fucked Reignover. They gave him Darshan and Huhi. Like, dude, I start to look back and think that, because I was thinking this the other day, Loco. Think about how many junglers there are in LCS right now that aren't actually that sick.
Yeah,
dude, why is Reignover just gone forever? Like, what the fuck? Why do you give? He had the 2 worst years ever and then quit. I get that. Like, the optics looked really bad. But there's plenty of teams that guy could be a competent player for sure.
You want to hear something funny? I was out last night and I ran into Huni, and we were talking about where Reignover went. Like, it was Huni, Adrian, like the old Immortals crew, and we were talking about like where Reignover went and what he's up to. So, spoiler alert, Reignover's like just in Korea playing auto chess and then playing solo queue time to time. Like, he's just chilling.
It's depressing.
Well, in a sense it is depressing, but he's been away for a long time and he's really close to his mom and his brother, so he went on a vacation with them and he's spending a lot of time, so it's something well needed. But yeah, like Reignover could be really useful for some of the teams.
I even think he could be in the LCK.
Oh, that's rough, dude. Like, as the Reignover like would get in NA, I think he could function, but in LCK, like, everyone's so good mechanically, I'm not sure if he could stand up. Even players like Kakao don't make it to LCK. Do you think Reignover could?
If you gave him the right team. Because here's the thing. Here's the thing that for some reason Reignover himself hasn't figured out. It's like, but this is a funny thing that happens, right? Which is you get players who disagree with like the general narrative made around them. They think, like, oh, it's just all nonsense. You just made up a story and just keep repeating it over and over again. And what's mad is some of these players, it's because they can't look at themselves objectively. And sometimes it takes them years to realize, like, oh, actually, the narrative people had about me years ago, yeah, there was something to that actually. So what's mad is I can't believe Reignover hasn't looked at his own career and realized, why don't I just go to a team where it's a carry top laner who wants to be fucking ganked all day long?
Players don't have that much control, like, over rosters. Like, you just try to join the best team possible, and even if the best team you're joining isn't a good fit for you, I think it's really hard for players to be like, I could join, let's say, a TSM, but I won't be a good fit on TSM. Or I could join, let's say, Echo Fox, but I would be a great fit on Echo Fox. Extremely hard for a player to make the choice to join Echo Fox over joining TSM.
Sure, but it's short-sighted to do the former, right? Because if you do join the TSM and you do badly, the optics are so bad on your time there, you'll ruin your entire chance. Then you might not even get on the Echo Fox, right? In that analogy.
Yeah, I mean, true, but it's right in front of you, and you're choosing between a good team and a bad team, and even the bad team is good fit. It's really hard to choose that. And
anyway, going back to the 100 Thieves angle, though, like, the most criminal thing about this is, like, Bang must have cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. I bet there were other teams in NA were willing to bid for him, and I'll guarantee there was teams in China that wanted him. Like, I know, like, this is the weird thing about China, is, like, I know they don't go as crazy as they did in the Korean Exodus, but the key thing is, because they're clever enough with all the streaming stuff to know that marketing is a big deal there, there'll always be some team that at the moment, like, isn't that sick, who would be like, yeah, we'll sign that player, fuck it. We'll have him in just for the sake of his name. Like, obviously, think about how amazing it would be if you had, like, 2-time world champion as on your streaming stuff. So he could have gotten, I'm sure, a similarly big contract elsewhere. So it's just kind of depressing even where he ended up. Because this is one of the things where this is where people never get to see how absolutely reasonable I am in my actual analysis. Beyond like hyperbolic statements, my actual analysis is always reasonable. So when Bang was at his absolute peak, everyone would have told you I was a hater, right? Because I never thought he was the best AD carry. I always thought he was on teams that he was one of the players who got carried to some degree or would not have been as good. Like, for example, if you're a Bang style AD carry, you could never have the career you have without those 6 solo laners. I saw this guy on SK Telecom S. People forget that. Half the people criticizing me, Loco, never saw this guy before he joined SK Telecom K. So they act like he just came out of a fucking rock somewhere and started playing. No, we saw him play for like 3 years before, and he was just an average OGN level AD carry.
He did
so
improve.
What happens? He improved a bit. Even then, he didn't go like light years up. What happened was he got on a team where it perfectly fit his style. Like he played enough. By the way, he also helped them. Like, for example, you can't be like Marin 24/7 pushed up in lane if your bot lane's ready to die all the time. Like, you'll just feed all over the map. So those two, what's mad is I actually even think that's why, in my opinion, Season 5 SK Telecom's overrated. Is because Marin and Bang covered each other's flaws.
Really well,
Yeah, that's what was perfect about it. But on their own, that's why on their own, they're meme. Like, you know, when Marin was on his own in Africa, he was just basically, it's like half the games he inted, the other half he carried. He was doing the same shit in all of them Loco. He would pick his champion, he'd go in a lane, he would try and win the lane, and he'd try and just go and win the map. And it's like, if it worked, it looked like a genius. If it didn't, it looked like a moron. Whereas if you put them on a team where they were both covering each other, it was great. So the problem with that one for me is like, what I'm going to make the point of now is, I'm not now going to be like, haha, see, I told you Bang was shit the whole time. No, because I never really meant that. Like, the whole point is people are going too far now saying he's bad. If I watch him in these 100 Thieves games, he's one of the players I give the least blame to. I think he's done pretty decently, actually. It's just that if you look at his style never got to come online in any of these games, Loco. Like, you know the real irony? If he'd been on 100, if Bang, as he played this split, had been on Golden Guardians, he would have had a fucking amazing split, dude. Waiting until the 40-minute point and then having a team fight. He would be sick, wouldn't he?
Bang Frog and backline. Yeah, Bang Frog and backline would have been crazy
Those
good.
dudes would be loving playing together. So I feel bad for Bang because he didn't know it, but he just walked into totally the wrong circumstances for himself.
All right, let's go into a different topic within 100 Thieves before finally moving on. Another player I really want to talk about is Onda. So Onda is someone that's not very vocal and that's pretty reserved. And that's a completely fine personality to have. So to go on a little rant, I think gaming is art. And what art means is it's self-expression. If you have a certain personality or if you are a certain type of person, you will express that through your gameplay. If you are crazy emotional with a lot of ups and downs, then you'll show that in your gameplay. I think a great example of that is Khan. Khan is like super funny.
Pick yourself?
I'm Mia, of course. Yeah, myself also, but
for people who don't know, right, the reason why, you know, Loco, by the way, I actually think that your theory you gave about AD carry that I've referenced many times, you should make a piece of content about that, you know. I've never heard anyone actually explain it that way. Because the reason why it's hilarious is it's totally accurate, but people don't know it's so clearly something that you understand from your own career.
Yeah.
Because famously, you used to do basically what Deftly does now. You'd pick exactly the wrong moment to just go too hyphy on your own. You'd die, and then it's like, I'm sure you obviously thought to yourself, like, fuck, like, there's no reason to die there. Like, if I stayed alive, you know. So, like, you had the same issue yourself, right? You could be doing so well up in the game up until you did that one Loco leap and fucked the whole game up, right?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to use myself as an example because I thought it was conceited, and also people don't know my gameplay too much. But, like, a great example of someone, like, emotional with a lot of up and down playing the game is Khan. Someone that's very calm, someone that's very chill playing the game and that is very consistent. Apollo, Sneaky, like someone that's very chill, someone that's very laid back playing the game. Like, it shows in your gameplay. And I think on this conservative nature and I think on this shy nature shows in his gameplay and also with his communication. And jungle is the one role you cannot be conservative or non-communicative and shy on. Jungle is a very, very proactive role. It's a very communicative role. It's a role with a lot of agency. And I think long-term, Onda should seriously consider role swapping back to top. So he used to play under Chorong and he used to play top lane. And I mean, Onda's also cousin of Balls. Like, could you imagine if Balls was playing jungle? Like, Balls the old
Here's
C9.
the thing though, as far as I know, like, this is pure speculation, but isn't that one of those scenarios where, like, I mean, they're both like Vietnamese origin or something, right? I think when they say cousin like that, because you know the problem is in English we don't have a term for like what do you go beyond
cousin. Once removed, second removed. There,
so,
yeah.
So for example, like if my cousin has a kid, that's also my cousin in English. Right?
Yeah,
it's not like a cousin nephew.
A relative,
so So the problem is, as far as I know, in a lot of like Vietnamese families, they have huge families, don't they? Like they have like 10 kids, and then the kids have. So I think that doesn't mean he's literally like super close.
But he's very similar to Balls in terms of like being conservative and being shy, and like those players cannot play jungle. Imagine if Balls played jungle. Balls never talks. Balls is never communicative. It would be terrible, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing with Onda. I think Onda has potential as a player, and why I would suggest a role swap to him over like trying to get better at jungle or trying to being more communicative. You can't be a communicative player, a vocal player, without being a vocal person, and I think it's so much harder to change who you are as a person to change your actual gameplay role and match that. So yeah, I mean, I think this split was a great wake-up call for 100 Thieves, and they seriously need to fix their roster and actually make moves for summer. They don't need to think about winning summer or going to Worlds this summer. Honestly, that's far gone. What they need to do is prep themselves so they're in a good position for 2020.
Sure. No, the thing about that is, I would agree generally. Like, it's like I made the same joke where there was, I can't remember what the other player was, where you said that wasn't very vocal as a jungler. I was like, isn't that like half of being a jungler? It's like, you don't even talk, shot call. So what I would say is, Ander could probably still work at LCS level, but he'd need to have a team where it's like everyone else is all that he isn't. Like every lane can call him, every lane can give him direction. But then half of that's going to be difficult anyway, because then you're going to have to worry about, like he's just going to be tossed to and fro as the lane's calling back. So then he'd still need to have them be very reasonable. And that's always going to be the hardest part, right? To get the top laner to say, no, you can go bot, I'm okay. Half the time it's people know, even at the pro level, people are just demanding your attention all the time. That's why I actually think, I mentioned it on the I Will Dominate episode, I don't think it's a coincidence that most really good junglers either just straight up assholes or they're like, at a very minimum, like they're stubborn, because the idea is the jungler really is the person that sometimes has 3 people telling him come here now, and he has to not only tell them which one he's going to pick, but then basically tell the other 2 like shut up.
Yeah, shut up. Yeah, I mean, Meteos said it best. As a jungler, one of your relationship with certain teammates are gonna suck because you're not gonna cater to them. All right, let's move on to a different team. So C9 and TL both got upset this week. I want to talk about C9 a little bit more.
Yeah. The C9 was the worst one, mate, because I already told you, mate, Echo Fox is the worst team in the LCS. I don't care. Like, the others all have something redeeming. Even winning that game didn't make you think that Echo Fox is good. It's not like you watched that and thought, they figured it out. They've got it together. Oh, it's so unlucky. They got it together at the end of the split. No, you watched that game and go, what the fuck was Cloud9 doing? What? Like, what's mad is, in literally 2 games, Loco, they've killed all their playoff hype. They had the big hyped marquee matchup against Team Liquid. Let's see what they can do. Oh, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then now they have this game like, well, they'll win all the rest of the games at the end of the split. They lost to who? Echo Fox. Like, what year is this? What the fuck?
Oh my god. Zeyzal played so bad in that game, and I was super fucking surprised because I hold Zeyzal really in high regard, and I don't think a lot of people give Zeyzal the credit that he deserves, because super quiet player. The first support you talk about, Core JJ, obviously. The support after that, most likely Foodie, TSM's been on an upsurge, and then even though Afro is doing badly, you talk about Afro more so than you talk about Zeyzal. I think Zeyzal's second best support in NA right now.
I think it's been his split though, because like if you look at the meta, mate, those champions. Tom Kench, fucking
Alistar, Galio, Braum.
Galio's been very good. Like these particular, like basically like playmaking supports, dude. He does so much in those team fights they have in the mid game. He's so on point.
It was such an off week for Zeyzal. I have no idea what happened with C9, and I hope they recover. Honestly, playoff is going to be so boring if it's just like there needs to be good teams in playoff. TL is good. TSM is ramping up. C9 needs to be good for the season to be good, and FlyQuest also needs to be good. I'm really counting on these 4 teams to be good in playoff and save this fucking season.
Luckily, the nature of these 2 losses, in theory, should mean that if it is still possible for C9 to change and be good, they will. Like this should be the wake up call, because obviously they made the playoffs anyway. It doesn't technically matter, what happens at this point now. Probably still win at least one of the last games. I mean, the last 2 games is is Clutch Gaming and FlyQuest. So at minimum, they win one of those games. So they'll still be fine overall. It's just like, I agree. If they come in with this sort of form, it's going to be really, really poor. They get stomped right now if they play Team Liquid.
Yeah. Also, C9 doing kind of their last-minute checkup on Golden Glue and Blabber, giving them a game or so each to make sure they're warmed up for stage. They're definitely going to play 7-man roster again.
No way.
You don't think they'll do 7-man?
Okay, explain this to me. In what possible context would it make sense to put Golden Glue in the playoffs?
So I had the same kind of worries about Golden Glue that you did, and I did get to interview him, and I asked him that exact question. What do you bring to the team that Nisqy doesn't? And Golden Glue says he's more vocal, and he's able to hype them up or pump them up if they need be. I do think if C9 lost the game in like a really kind of shitty way, or if they lose a game that they shouldn't have and they need a mental reset, I think Golden Glue is a really good fit there. Golden Glue Svenskeren can turn the mood of the team around and turn kind of the, I guess, like the tempo and the wave of the series around if it happens. I will admit Grayson is not the most strong player individually, but team mood and also momentum in a series is super fucking important. So I can see where it is beneficial to have Grayson. It's definitely not a negative to give him that one game when they're already out of contention for first.
When in the split, I agree, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You don't think he's going to see any play? You don't think
I wouldn't play him for one game, because here's another factor you aren't thinking of. Mm-hmm. Dude, you know the most famous thing about Nisqy is he gets like way better in the playoffs.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, like when he was on Splice, that was what he made his whole name off. Like in the split itself, he was like, he was a solid mid laner. But every time he got into like playoff or gauntlets now, he was just popping off. He was doing really, really well. And at times, even when the team was doing badly, he was going ham. So like, first of all, with that guy's rep, like it's very unlikely you're going to put Golden Glue in at any point, even if he's doing badly. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, if you look at the one scenario that allows Cloud9 to potentially win this split, is that they've shown the most well-rounded qualities of all the teams in the LCS. So like Team Liquid and TSM, if anything, are on opposite ends of the equation at the moment. Like they're the one that's had it all. They're the one that in theory could match up with anyone. Well, if you put Golden Glue, that goes away. Like part of the reason why is because they also had, I would compare this season, Cloud9 is like the origin of LCS because they don't except you could argue Licorice is the best top player, but aside from that, they don't really have the best player at any position, but they have like pretty good players at all positions, and they're really well rounded, and they can play through any lane, and they seem like they understand what they're doing in the game at all times.
Well
so,
coached.
That's a big strength to have. The problem is if you take one player out, like if you put Golden Glue in, loads of your threat in mid lane goes away. It doesn't mean he's going to feed. He'll probably do okay, but you're going to get way less dangerous. And so if you think of the teams you're going to face, well, actually, the crazy thing about this split, if you look, Loco, is your point about mid lane looks like it's borne out, because look at all the teams that are likely going to get in. It's all the best mid laners, basically. Mm-hmm. It's almost going to be all the best mids. Even if Optic make it in, that'll be Crown. There we go. Yeah. All the best mids will be in.
Yeah. I don't think Golden Glue is better than Nisqy, but I definitely do think he's valuable in playoffs. And also, I do think Blabber will definitely be valuable. Blabber plays so aggressive, and Blabber is... and one thing great about Blabber and Golden Glue is they're very different from their counterparts. Like Svenskeren and Nisqy, they're very different. So at least if Cloud9's in a situation, if they can't find a solution with the 5 they have more options. But really, really praying that they step up in the final week and they don't drop to third, and also that they look good for playoffs. TSM and TL, as much as I support both teams, and those are actually the exact two teams I had coached before, they drag the game on so long sometimes, and their games can be incredibly boring to watch. So I'm really hoping Cloud9 does well for the sake of just like the viewing experience.
Sure. The thing with that as well is like, I'm not going to go too far. One thing I think I've actually done a pretty good job generally this split. I keep making myself remember anytime there's a crazy upset. What I always tell myself is like, we are back to best of ones though, because like if you go and watch LCK, it's not like even Griffin loses a game and then sometimes comes back and wins a series. Even SK Telecom goes down one game, comes back. Like you can't do that in LCS. That would just be an upset. It's over. You lost the one game, you fucked it up, bad draft. Got caught once, game over. So. Remember, we had to go back to this format because for whatever reason, it does seem like Western fans who are really casual appreciate it more. Like they like the hype of watching one game. But that means, like, for example, it might have just been a really unlucky... Like this particular game might have just been the worst possible game Cloud9 could have played. Yeah. Maybe if they come to the playoff season, they'll be way back at the level they were 3 weeks ago. Could easily happen. So I'm not going too far on that one. Like, I'm not going to write them off entirely. I think in general, people went way too ham in both LEC and LCS. It's like we all forgot that same thing that we all learned when we went to best of threes. We all just went back to like, the result means everything. Yeah. So like, we do all overreact to that. But I would agree. And by the way, on TSM, like, it's going to be this the whole way, by the way, Loco. Every time we critique TSM fans are going to be like, why are you hating though? We're really good. It's like, first of all, logically, we actually have to critique you more if your team's relevant again. Like, if your team were, like, if TSM was the one fighting with Optic and Clutch Gaming for a playoff spot, I'd be way less critical. I'd go, you know what, they're not doing bad actually as a lineup, the roster's doing pretty. But if I have to judge them compared to Team Liquid, I have to be very critical now, because as you're saying, the difference is when Team Liquid has some of these late games, they're sort of like choosing that because they don't want to take a risk. They want to make sure they win this game 100%. Mm-hmm. TSM is actually super proactive early, yet still gets dragged to the late game. Mm-hmm. That means their mid game is ass.
Yeah. Well, in terms of like criticizing teams, one thing I'll say is I don't think we'll ever not talk about TSM, TL, or even 100 Thieves. Like, these teams are just, they're marquee names. Like, people, let's be honest, people don't really care if you talk about Optic or if you talk about Echo Fox or if you talk about Clutch. That's not why you clicked on this video. You clicked on this video because you wanted to see us shit on 100 Thieves, talk good about TSM, or put my foot in my mouth about Team Liquid. Like, that's why you clicked on the video. So I think we'll always talk about those teams. And going to TSM, they are proactive early. They have been getting better, and they are not that one-note top lane team anymore, where Acadian just plays Sejuani and constantly ganks top. Acadian still has the highest jungle proximity for Broken Blade. So let's talk a little bit about Broken Blade and Acadian. TSM fans, I don't get how you don't understand this. Broken Blade gets a lot of counter picks. He gets so much counter picks. Acadian has the highest jungle proximity for top lane in the entire league. Out of all the junglers, all 10 junglers, Acadian is the most, like, he spends the most time top lane. Those are huge fucking resources. Broken Blade gets a lot of resources, and he still looks average to slightly above average. And that's not good enough. And that's not something I'm super excited for. And that's my criticism towards Broken Blade and Acadian. They can play one-dimensional, and for the resource Broken Blade gets, I don't think he does enough. He's good, he's average, but that's not enough for me.
Plus, once he gets out of laning phase, he's really not that sick a player in the LCS. Like, he does decently in lane, he seems like he knows his matchups. Like, if he gets a chance and gets a kill, he'll get ahead. Mm-hmm. But, like, this is, in fact, actually, the way you set it up there is exactly how I see it as well. Because basically, the problem in TSM is if you look at the role balance, like, they have a great team to have a carry top laner. Their bot lane split, the way they're playing at the moment, like, yeah, they're not trying to make it to they haven't got the best 2v2. They're not going to smash bot lane. They're not going to take the advantage from bot lane, spread it across the map. Bjergsen's actually having more carry performances, but obviously he varies it depending on what he thinks he needs in the game. Their team's basically set up to have a really strong top laner. In fact, as you're saying, it's not like they brought Broken Blade in and were like, listen, you were the last to join, like, we're not going to give you much, so just do what you can and, prove yourself and then we'll give you it. No, if anything, they're playing as though they think Broken Shard should carry most of these games. Yeah. And the problem is, it's not that he doesn't, it's just that, first of all, he very rarely carries the whole game, and then he's very iffy as to what he does when he has a lead or when he gets some kills. Like, you can't, it's not money in the bank. It's not guaranteed you're going to win that way.
I mean, he played Vladimir, and he looked decent on Vladimir. I think they played 100 Thief for one of their games. I forgot the other game that they played. I'm trying to remember. But it wasn't good teams, and then they won. It's not just about last weekend, guys. It's about the entire split and what we've seen out of him. And here's who you should be comparing Broken Blade to. I think a really great comparison. The person you fucking replaced Broken Blade with, like, you should compare him to Haunter. I think Haunters look better.
Of course.
And another person that you can easily compare Broken Blade to, Viper. So FlyQuest is also a top lane oriented team with a very new top laner. I feel like a lot of times Viper looks better than Broken Blade per resource he has. So he doesn't look better than the guy he replaced. He doesn't look better than the other rookie that he's competing versus. He's still a good to average player. It's just some of the expectation for Broken Blade was he's going to be the next Bjergsen. He's a young player with a lot of hype. I was very excited for Broken Blade, and I thought he'd be amazing too. And I also think it's too early to really determine who Broken Blade is as a player. It's his first split in LCS. We're going to see more of him. Let's make let's make a call at the end of the year. It's too early, but so far, from what I've seen,
how many times, like message to the TSM nation, you have to stop. Yeah, it's time to stop. Right? This is exactly the same self-talk that y'all have been saying about Mike Young, Greg, Acadian. Like, when does it end? Like, you can't keep giving these motherfuckers a whole year and then going, shall I bring him back for next year? It's like, your team is supposed to be the fucking top of the league. You aren't there to develop the player. You're there to get sick players, put them in the game and win the game. Like, you're not there to go, I've got like another year before I need to win. Like that's the problem with TSM at the moment. For some weird reason, I don't know why, Loco, they just refuse to buy talent. I would have to speculate.
They got burned buying talent.
Exactly. I would unfortunately speculate that, like, if you look at some of the last really high-profile moves they've done, I can't blame them. They've failed. Like Yellow Star, Mithy, these moves failed. Like, it's kind of sad, but that doesn't mean the solution is just go the other way. Because the problem is, like, I think they look at Cloud9 and they see how many people Cloud9 brought through who were like rookies and stuff, and they think, oh, we can do that. It's like, you haven't done it yet. You've been dog shit scouting talent.
Let me contest you on that. I do think that's the way they have to do it. They can't. There isn't like proven top tier talent that they can buy, and also they
what?
Wait, they bought Smoothie and they couldn't. Yeah. They couldn't. Oh, you want them to get Flame?
There's a million people. What? There's not proven top laners they could buy.
Who would you have wanted instead of Broken Blade?
Have you ever seen this thing called the LEC?
What, Odo Omne or?
Man, LEC top laners murder fucking LCS.
I think they could have gone like the Odo Omne Cabochard route, but they got burned by buying big name talent, so they wanted to do something different for this year, which I didn't mind at all. And I don't want to put blame onto them for Acadian, because that wasn't
Well, let's see you mind it when they get fucking absolutely spanked out of the semi-finals and they're not in the final and all the TSM fans have that fucking pennant on their walls. Like, I remember season 6. Like, yeah, exactly. They can go back and watch the old VODs, can't they? Because it's not like, here's the problem. Even if things go, like, I'm trying to imagine the best case scenario of Broken Blade. Maybe like he gets more comfortable next split. You still got the jungle issue to work out. That hasn't been resolved entirely. Like, the problem with TSM is it's not like there's one tiny little issue. They're actually, here's the thing. In the context of their lineup, I actually think they've had a very good split. I think they've done about as well as you could possibly hope for. Like, I mean, I know people are going to go, oh, but some of the games, they threw. It's like, yeah, but you know what? They've also won some games that they probably wouldn't have otherwise. Like, I think it's kind of evened out. So in the context of their roster, that I don't think is that strong overall. I think they've done really well to be in the position they're in, where they're coming in as like a solid dark horse, like third best team. That's pretty good. So I actually think, if anything, some things have worked in their team. So I don't really look and go, if you take this same team in the summer, you get way better. I think you probably don't.
I think Broken Blade and Acadian, for as much shit we give them, at least they have potential to improve, and this is the first time both of them have been playing in LCS with a good coach. Acadian's bounced around a lot on kind of shitty orgs like Echo Fox Optic. This is his first time on a team like TSM, and I think he's done okay.
Right, yeah.
I think he's done par for the course, and I want to see them in summer. I'm not too excited for them in spring, and I don't think TSM fans should be either. That's, oh god, it drives me crazy anytime I criticize TL or TSM, because I know in my head that I'm saying the right thing, but I still know I'm gonna get criticized for saying the right thing. Oh, it's fucking insane. But yeah, TSM fans, don't expect much for spring. I don't think you guys are gonna do that much in spring, but a lot to look forward to in summer with growth of Acadian and growth of Broken Blade. One thing I do want to mention, or go ahead.
As a quick aside, I want to say something though, which is I'm actually a bit worried for TSM in the future, because here's the big problem. On the one hand, they're not the top team, and in fact, they're not even supposed to be right now. Like, until they get an amazing roster or have a really good set of performances, you shouldn't expect them to win the LCS. But the problem is that, like, the way they are scrutinized hasn't caught up with their current status. It's the example I used to give is, like, in season 7, if you looked at the way people talked about the CLG teams, right, by season 7, Loco, CLG was a bottom half of the table team. They would have been like barely making the playoffs, and they had no chance to win LCS. But because the year before they'd won LCS, they'd made MSI, they had the same core, people still talked as though like, oh, what a failure this is. And so it's like, no, you guys don't realize that the reputation hasn't caught up with who they are as a team now. Well, this is the bad thing about TSM, is they don't have the most money anymore. They're not the champions anymore, but you get all the scrutiny if you join their team. that makes them actually not a very good location to go to, because if you're choosing, like if you had to choose tomorrow between going to Team Liquid, Cloud9, TSM, and not just because the other two are better at the moment in the game, even if you ignored that part, if they were all equally good, you definitely wouldn't choose TSM out of the three. Or if you would, here's the sort of person who would choose TSM, is someone who has an amazing mentality. Like, say there was some dude who really thought, like, if I go to TSM, I'm going to join TSM because I'm going to carry the whole game. You know? I'm going to be like a massive... If you had that person, I get why he would say yes. I know a lot of really good players who'd be like, oh, that's not worth the hassle, you know. Like, I'll just go to Cloud9. Like, Cloud9 has cool fans. I'll see how that goes. Yeah. So I'm actually worried for who they can get in the future.
Yeah. And also, let's talk about a little bit of TSM in playoffs. This is the highest level that Broken Blade and Acadian has played on. They both, like, Broken Blade played in TCL finals, whatever, go fuck that shit. Like, LCS playoff is the highest pressure and the highest platform that these players have played on. They're playing under TSM banner. So they looked shaky to okay coming up to this point. Now this is going to be the real test when they do play in playoffs. And that's also a part I'm a little bit worried about.
Oh, I would agree. Like as a general rule, it sounds weird because obviously in theory you should go person by person, but as a general rule, people who are rookies don't tend to do that well when they get in playoff scenarios. Because again, it's like it's a new environment to adapt to. You know, you've never played in that setting before. You know, like one of the funny things is, I'll give you a great story. It's a story that actually a lot of CSGO fans wouldn't know, but they're not going to watch this fucking episode anyway. So one of the most legendary players of the last few years in CSGO is the Brazilian player Coldzera. And one of the things he is infamous for is he doesn't even have like close to the best aim, by the way. He's not like the most skilled player. And even though he is one of the best players, he's just got like pretty good skills, but he's got like mastered Counter-Strike basically. Like his style, he's mastered it. Like he always is like in the right place and he always knows where you are. And when he attacks in a way where he exactly knows what he's doing. And so as a result, even though he's not like the craziest aimer, he's still a very, very intimidating player to play against. Because you know if he's alive in like a 1v1, like, oh, fuck, it's cold here. Like he always wins these. And so as a result, you start like thinking or like second guessing yourself, like, oh, but he'd be there if I was there. Well, here's the mad thing. You might think to yourself that as a result, what he's doing in all these 1v1s is he's like super outbraining the opponent, like, oh, I'll go here, and then like, oh, a chess move, like, and then he'd come to here. No, what he does is part of the fact he's like mastered the game is he's just perfectly comfortable. So where even really good players sometimes get nervous in a 1v1 or they overthink it or they like do some super wild move, he's never doing that. He's just calm. And what he basically knows is in that setting, more likely one of us is going to make a mistake and it ain't going to be me. So I'm just going to set it up. And when you make your mistake, I'll win the game. And so there was a cool story behind the scenes that I can tell you where when his team, SK Gaming at the time, it's now MIBR, was in they were in a game where he was actually dead. It was his teammate, Fallen, was alive, and he was in a 1v1 against an opposing player. I won't tell you which player, so it won't ruin the story. And they were just in a 1v1. And apparently Coldzera just said on comms to Fallen, like, just let him make a mistake. Noobs always make a mistake. And then Fallen basically did that and just like stayed in a spot. And then the other player just like ran out and he just got an easy kill. And then the guy was like, what the fuck, really? And then Coldzera was just like, you know, so like that's just what he does. Like that's why people like Soaz will always just be cash money if they can make playoffs. Because like when they get there, they get like a boost. It's not that they get that much better. It's that everyone else gets like 10% worse. Rookies are always going to be the ones most likely to flail, unfortunately.
For sure.
They've never been there before.
All right. Now, let's move on to Team Liquid. Team Liquid also dropped the game this weekend to FlyQuest. So, I feel like Team Liquid loss is a little bit more excusable than C9's loss. Doublelift suddenly got a boner for Vayne. Koreans have been playing Vayne. Chinese people have been playing Vayne. And TL overly forced a Vayne pick. A lot of teams in NA this week did. I'm sure Vayne must have gotten played a lot in scrims amongst the top team. That's why there's a lot of Vayne. And a key point with Vayne is when you play Vayne, you play it with Braum. So when you play with Braum, his stun passive from Braum works really well with Rage Blade, where you get 2 procs a bit. And also, due to how Braum's shield works, you get protected from things that outrange you as the Vayne. So it's really, really good to have Braum on your team. And you can see how Korean teams draft, Chinese teams draft. They'll prioritize Braum with Vayne. NA teams didn't do that. Both times where Nisqy lost and Doublelift lost, Braum was not on their team. And another thing is they were just so forcibly playing it and playing to pick it. One thing that I could tell was when they won their first game where Doublelift, I'm not sure if you saw, but he was at Nexus. He was hitting Nexus. and he stopped hitting Nexus and did the Vayne dance, and like he was doing the Vayne dance and he stopped hitting Nexus, and then he basically BM'd, and I think the only reason he did that was because it's Vayne and he wanted to show off a little. And next game going into FlyQuest, they blind picked Vayne when FlyQuest had Braum, and it wasn't the greatest Vayne situation, and he kind of got fucked. So I'm not too down on TL's losses this weekend. I think there was a lot of hype for Vayne, and Doublelift really wanted to play Vayne.
Yeah, but here's the other thing as well. I agree with those sentiments, by the way. Like that, like you're right. That's a classic example of, you know, that if you're an NA fan, you know, one of the reasons everyone flames your region is exactly this: the amount of times that Westerners have watched LCK and they go, "Hey, that's a really strong pick," and then they pick it without any of the things in the comp that enable it, and they just put it in the LCS. And you just think, did you not understand that at all? Like that doesn't even make sense. That's like trying to wear like fucking Wonder Bra when you're a man. Like, what are you propping up? Like, there's nothing there, dude. Like, the fuck? Yeah, look sick on Claudia Shift, or did reference there, whatever. I don't know, Emily Ratajkowski, there you go. Looks sick on her, but it's not going to look good on you, is it, you moron? So maybe for you, stick to a plain t-shirt that says I'm with stupid and arrow pointing up at yourself. Anyway, so, no, here's the thing, though, that I don't get about it is, like, these last 2 weeks, you know all these losses that Team Liquid's had? Only a couple. They're all on you, fans of the LCS. Now, they're on Team Liquid because they have to accept ultimate responsibility for what they choose to do, but all the criticism of this team that couldn't lose has now made them do all this dumbass shit at the end of the split. So they started trying to play 1-3-1 and play way more aggressive. Now they're just locking in Vayne because everyone keeps telling Doublelift that he's not the fucking MVP, so he has to try and show it off. And what's the most ego fucking 1v9 the whole game? Sadly, he didn't know he was 1v9ing for the other team, but you know, like, it's depressing, isn't it? Like, they just at the end tried to fuck around. Now, luckily, I'm sure they'll just cut all that out for the playoffs. It won't matter, but it wasn't a good look. It also killed their hype a little bit.
Yeah. It's an NALCS like shitty, and then there was like, but we still believe in TL, we still believe in TSM, we believe in C9, and then last weekend was like C9 and TL being like, why the fuck are you being hyped for playoffs? Go fuck yourselves. And they killed. I wish I was more hyped for playoffs. Like LEC ending with like SK doing really well, Fnatic doing really well, and then like the big question mark around G2, and then Origin like maintaining their place. Like it was so hype, and I'm super excited for LEC playoff. For LCS, I pray to God next weekend is good and it's not shitty, because this weekend was what the fuck from the top teams.
Sure.
Anything else you want to mention for TL?
I actually think the thing about Team Liquid I want to make a point about is I don't get all the sort of doom and gloom when people talk about them as a team. Like, here's the difference. When we were talking about TSM, and I was like, personally, I don't think they'll make that big a drastic change, you know? Like, obviously, I mean, the jungle position might change. We don't know about that yet. But I think generally they'll be similar. They might be a little bit better. Maybe they'll, like, shore some weaknesses up. But I doubt they're going to make, like, they're not going to get, like, 30% better, in my opinion. I actually think Team Liquid is one of the few teams in the LCS that really could get a lot better. Like, I think if you look at their team, think about how many games they've won by a really comfortable margin. They don't actually have, aside from Core JJ, I don't think I'd pick another member of their team as an MVP candidate. Like, a lot of their players have kind of just chilled. Like, they haven't been needed to go off. Like, Jensen's had a good split. I think at times he carried a little bit more than he did last year on C9, but he hasn't really gone super ham. He hasn't had to. You look at all the rest of the positions on the map, they've just done their job. They've done a pretty good, like Doublelift's been very good, but he's not like the standout AD carry of the split. You look at Smithy, okay, maybe he's a contender for best jungler, but even then it's not like he's like clear-cut the absolute best, you know. Impact's just on his job as usual. So first of all, there's room where they could do a lot more with these tools if they really wanted to. Like if the meta switches or they choose themselves to play differently, maybe they get a contender that's really good for them in the summer. They could still get a lot better. It's just that at the moment, they still use some of what they did last year, but they use it with like better tools. They just don't make use of those tools, if anything, you know. Like Jensen can do his own pole vaulter impression if you want and just do that, but like obviously if we're going to go international, I want to see him fucking hard carry. I want to see him pick champions he can smash everyone on. So I still actually hold out some hope that whether they win this split or not, they can be better in summer. They can be a legit team by the time we get to Worlds. They've still got a great chance to, in my opinion. I
really like what happened to TL during MSI in terms of what it did for them mentally and how it pushed them, because they weren't pushed very much in NA. Oh, they were like initially not that good, and once they got their shit together in spring, MSI was a really big wake up call for them, and I hope TL goes to MSI. I hope it's TL or C9 that goes to MSI. I think these two teams will learn the most and improve the most from going to MSI. So
yes,
yeah, I do agree with you. They have space to improve, but they're not going to improve unless they get pushed, and they're not getting pushed very hard in NA. So they have to go international for them to improve.
Sure. And luckily, by the way, if you look at the teams that are likely going to come from the other regions, they're going to have a really, really big test if they go to MSI. Because, for example, like almost every other region is sending like a pure fucking carry top laner. There's only Griffin isn't, basically. And it doesn't matter on their team. They kill you from the rest of the map anyway.
All right. Which team do you want to handle next? We did all the top teams. We did 100 Thieves.
All right. I know the one we have to talk about, Loco.
Guardian.
No, not Golden Guardian. We can leave that one.
Yeah.
There's a different team that needs to be flamed.
CLG?
Which, the fucking mate. First half of the split, well done. Respectable performance, really well managed. Expectations even managed, didn't seem unreasonable. Looked like they were winning because of what made sense. They actually managed to get the lineup into a good space. The last few weeks almost looks like they're sabotaging their own team. It's depressing.
I actually had a really good guess, and I heard some things. So let me try to think without trying to reveal too much. So when management would never, ever, ever actively sabotage a team. Management would never,
Obviously
ever.
not, yes.
So,
Yes.
but, okay, so like a mom and a dad, when you're at a family outing, if the family outing goes to shit because like the mom and the dad ends up having to like discipline the kids and then be like, Timmy, why are you acting out in public? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Then like your family's going to have a shitty picnic day. But if your kid is acting out, then you need to discipline the kid. You can't just be like, because we're on a picnic, we can't just let Timmy go hit ducks or hit goose with like a stick or something.
Okay.
We have to discipline him if he's going around hitting ducks in the park. So I think that's kind of what's happening to CLG in like the last week or so, where they had very, very shaky performance from players, and they had to take action. And taking action made it look really bad. Where I still know you're iffy about Weldon as a coach, but I do think after that weekend where Stixay had like god awful early game and god awful laning, like they had to do something about it. I still do agree, like benching at that timing probably wasn't the best, but they were gonna need to take action somehow, someday. And what do you do as a team if you're on a downward slope and you can see yourself continuously being on a downward slope? Do you just sit there and maybe pray for the best and pray that your players show up even though they aren't doing well in practice? Or do you take action and actually get something to happen and actually hope for, like reshuffle the deck and take action so you can get better? So I think that was kind of the place that CLG was left in.
The issue here is like, this is where coaches have a totally different perspective than me on the game and their team, because I can tell you right now, I'm not exaggerating, any team that makes this LCS playoffs, their coach will on some level believe that they can still win the LCS. Like, we're in the playoffs now, we'll prepare for the first opponent, we could beat them if we do things right.
Yeah, but puncher's chance.
They all believe that they can win, right? So as a result, I would guess, if what you're saying is accurate, that's what their logic was. Their logic was, right, well, if we make the playoffs but people have like disciplinary issues and we're not all coordinated, then we can't win. But even if we have to take a gamble here, we might mess up. If we make it, this will be the thing that might turn the corner. We might then like improve. The problem with that is, because I'm not in their team, I have no reason to be like biased. So as a result, I look at their team and go like, dude, you're probably going out in the first round anyway. So if anything, you've only made it harder for yourself. You might still miss the playoffs yet. And then on top of that, I don't think you were going to win as it is. So I don't actually think it ultimately ended up probably doing much. Who knows in that sense. And also, it's a very, very worrying sign if the assumption here is like Wiggly's one of the players who was being disciplined, right?
Yeah, to a certain degree.
That's a pretty worrying sign when he's the guy who you've basically gambled CLG's franchise on Wiggly.
I think mostly they wanted to, I would say discipline Stixay, but they wanted a switch up. Like when you have like a weekend like that, and then if practice isn't going well, like they needed to take action. Maybe discipline isn't the best word, but they needed to switch up stuff, and they felt like that was their best switch up. And LCS teams have limited options. It's just, It's speaking from a coach point of view and also an insider point of view, but if your team is doing badly and you have options that aren't the greatest, but it's still better than like just running it again, like you have to switch certain things up.
Because I've actually found Wiggly's been a bit underwhelming. I don't think he came close to the hype you were giving him.
Yeah, overall, though, CLG has been pretty disappointing. I'm so surprised about Pr0lly and Wiggly. Pr0lly looked better on Optic than he did on CLG. I'm not sure why. Maybe...
it's like I told you, I actually said this before. One of the problems with Power of Evil is, this is where actually, because you compared the two players, Froggen and Power of Evil, because obviously earlier in the split you were doing it to say like Power of Evil's better or whatever. It's not even that they're better or worse. It's like, one of the problems is, Power of Evil, on the one hand, you can't put him on a really, really top team, because the only time that ever happened, he actually wasn't that sick. But you also... If you put him on a bad team, he'll be the best player. But like, that's why I found it really. You actually clarified it. I found it weird when you like described him to Weldon as like he's one of like the best carry mid laners. Because I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't really see him as that at all. But I know what you mean. You just
best
like,
system, best one-man system.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. But you didn't mean to literally like 1v9 the game, because obviously he's not doing that. That's my point. Because actually, in that sense, I do see him also as similar to Froggen, except the difference is, as you've seen in the last few years, tell you what, if you put Froggen on a bad team, he's still fucking comfortable. Like, it doesn't rattle him. Like, even if it's going to shit in the game, one of the things I always appreciate about him as a player is he will find if there's one chance left to win the game, he'll still keep playing towards that. He won't get demoralized. He won't give up. He won't int. He won't feed a kill. He'll just keep playing towards that one win condition. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So, like, problem I have with Power of Evil is I don't think they gave him the pieces to empower him on this team. Like, you look at who else they have. Darshan's been like, he had like maybe 2 weeks where he was competent. The bot lane's it's just a standard bot lane, and it's just okay. It's never going to carry the whole game. And then the fact he had jungle issues meant Power of Evil has nothing to work with. He needs a jungler.
Well, I kind of realized why Pr0lly looks worse now that I thought about it. I was trying to think, where would I place Pr0lly? And I probably place him 6th or 7th, and I realized why he looks worse. We added 3 mid laners that are better than Pr0lly. We added Nisqy, we added Froggen, we added Crown. So he just looks worse because the field of play it got stronger. Like, you literally added 3 players that are better than Pr0lly. So maybe he looked better on Optic because last year overall mid lane pool was much weaker.
Yeah, the actual league was a fucking mess last year. Like, remember, the Optic was at their best in the summer when the entire league had just gone to shit pretty much.
Yeah.
That was when it was like only Team Liquid and C9 were good, and then a little bit of TSM.
I mean, we talk about last year the league being a mess. This year is even worse in terms of it being a mess.
I think here's the thing though. For me, it's just the. This will sound like a weird, counterintuitive way to look at it. It's only the meta that's a mess in LCS, in my opinion. Like, they've just got themselves into a bad rut where, for some reason, everything's developed down this one line. And even though a few of the teams are trying to branch out and play better early, they haven't figured it out, and it's not working for them. And even worse, because it's not working, there's the temptation of like, oh, I should just go back to what we were doing. We'll win the game that way. So that's a problem in terms of the meta. I actually think, as counterintuitive as this sounds, the actual position the league is in isn't that bad, because you know all the parity where you have all these teams at the bottom have won games off teams at the top, etc. The actual rosters, a whole bunch of them are like this close to being good. Like there's a whole bunch of teams in the LCS now where if me and you could pick the one player we changed, and we had like some decent options, you know, like not just complete bombs. Yeah, they don't have to be the best players in the world. We're not like replacing them with caps, etc. But if we were allowed to pick like one equivalent player, but we're going to pick the right player, we could make LCS fucking fire. Some of these teams that get really good. Like, yes, sure, teams like Echo Fox are kind of a write-off. 100 Thieves, maybe a write-off. I'm not sure yet.
They need
most of the other ones, I feel like, are just one good player away.
Yeah. A lot of the thing is, a lot of teams have either bad synergy issues or like a player that's really good, like a player that's like 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, but also they have players that are like 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10 on their roster, and just changing that 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10 player would boost this team a lot.
That's actually why I say I think the league's in a good place, because the reason I think that ended up happening is because now all the teams have enough money, and actually, once you're not talking about the Cloud9s and Team Liquids, the destination you go to nowadays, you can't even really go by the name anymore. Like nowadays, would you join... Who would I think of that would be a good example here? Would you join CLG over some of the... Like, all the names kind of mean the same right now. You know, like, Echo Fox may as well be Clutch Gaming, may as well be 100 Thieves, may as well be... Well, actually, 100 Thieves had a bigger name before, ironically. May as well be FlyQuest. Like, all these orgs, I don't think people are going to decide when they go to NA based on the org name anymore. They're just going to look at who my teammates are and is the money offer good. And now that everyone can offer money, it's even the playing field. So actually, that's why I think the rosters all ended up messed up like this. Because I think it was so competitive in the off-season that you can't just be the top team and be like, we'll get this guy, this guy, this guy. It's like 2 of them are gone. And in fact, they've gone to this team. And even worse, I think part of how everyone got fucked up rosters, you even admitted it, is like this team would be like, right, well, we're going to kick this guy because we're going to get that junk. What, he's already gone to the other team? Fuck, right, go. Can we get an Eddie Carry quickly? Is he available? There's no more junglers left. Who hasn't been signed? Like, everyone was rushing around like that. So sooner or later, either there'll be more of like a hierarchy. Like, some teams will go to the top again and we'll have like shit teams that only bad players go to. Or some GMs will just do the better job next year, next split, and they'll get the right player, in my opinion.
Let's move on to a different team. So I kind of want to talk about FlyQuest. And when I was talking about FlyQuest by myself and Daniel, it was actually so hard because FlyQuest is a good team. They're a top 4 team, and they have some good players. Wild Turtle, Centauran, Pr0lly. These are good veteran pieces. They're such a hard team to talk about, and there isn't a lot of strong talking points for them. Where for the bottom tier teams, I actually have strong talking points. For the top tier teams, I have strong talking points. Where FlyQuest is just boring and good. They don't cost drama.
Where they should be.
Yeah, they're just boring and good, and I'm not sure if that's a great thing for them, because if you're a 4th place team, let's say 100 Thieves were 4th, we would be talking about 100 Thieves a lot. We would be talking about maybe if they match up versus TL and Bang and Afro play really well, they could even beat Doublelift, Core JJ. Like, we would be having conversations like that. With FlyQuest, they beat TL, but I'm still not very like hyped about FlyQuest or excited to talk about that. I'm just like, FlyQuest beat TL, Centauran's decent, Pr0lly's decent, Turtle's decent. They're just very lukewarm in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. Is like, on the one hand, in line with what you just said there, like, they have no MVP candidates. As in, like, here's the thing: if you're going to make like the MVP and you're going to be like, right, how many names should we consider? Unless there's some like really crazy split, you should probably only take like the 3 best names in the whole league and then decide which one of those. So if I was doing that, sorry, no one from FlyQuest on that list. Like, there's just nobody would be that level of MVP. So they don't have like the superstar player that you can either focus on, or you can say, oh, if this guy matches up so well. And as you're saying, if you look at the level they're at, they're basically, I don't know if you could call them a gatekeeper quite, because they have lost a lot of games to teams below them, but like they're like the watermark. Everyone above FlyQuest is really good. Everyone below FlyQuest is like flawed or bad.
Yeah.
And they're the only one that's neither, in my opinion. They're just like solid. But that's the problem, is like they don't have a ceiling that's going much higher. They don't have a very low basement either, by the way. They've got a very good like band level that they're in. And they tend to play to a pretty good level most of the games. Most of the players are fairly consistent. If you look at who the names are, you just listed off there, those 3 players, pretty consistent players, right? Pr0lly, I mean, the joke would be for Wild Turtle, he's consistent in a very weird way, but you know what, you're going to play exactly that same way all the time. And actually, Centauran and Pr0lly are notoriously really good, consistent players. So the downside is, all their strengths have got them here, but all the weaknesses are basically identical to the strength they come out of them. Like, you don't have the guy who takes over. So the big problem for FlyQuest for me is, there's just no way they can win best of 5 series against C9 team. It just ain't going to happen for them. Like, it would only happen, as far as I could tell, if those teams really fucked up their level. Like, if those teams come at a good level, it's going to be like a 3-1 loss. And, you know, FlyQuest will like win one game, they'll look good in another game, but they'll lose it. And it'll be 3-1 loss. And we'll all say, great season, you did a good job. Like, wow, great job with the roster. But going forwards, like, sadly, I have to say, even though this team has played so well, like, good coordination, seem like they all have very good attitudes, this is the actual team where if I could make one roster move, I'd love to make a change to this. You could make this team really good.
Yeah, it's funny to say, Pr0lly is one of their best players, but getting like can you even upgrade Pr0lly realistic? Like, because we're trying to do it where you can't get players
like a European or something.
Yeah, it's like a lot of players on FlyQuest. Here's how I feel. I could upgrade this player, but it would be risky, and also this player is good enough for me already.
Oh, I've got one for you.
What?
Like, what about this?
Flame for Viper?
Not every move's flame to other teams. Also, think about it, Loco. Just stop for 1 second. Use your brain. Why would I want Flame to leave Damn One Gaming, where he's going to be in the fucking playoffs of LCK and he's carrying against the best teams in the world?
Okay. Give me.
Unsurprisingly, Loco, I'm not that hyped for him to come back to NA and join every shit team and just help them out by playing Rumble. Like, I'm not really that psyched for that, homie. Like, I'm also not suggesting he joins TSM either. Like, I want him to just stay in Korea now and enjoy his life. He's suffered enough, and he's also rich enough now. He's got enough. He can go to fucking Myeongdong and buy all the skin products he wants and get all the free masks from the woman on the fucking microphone, and he doesn't ever need to go to NA again. Just live your life, my dude. Get all the water that you need, the Evian water that you never drink out the tap. Have all that in a fridge somewhere and fucking towel. Mate, he does remind me, for some bizarre reason, of, like, you know, at the end of his life, Michael Jackson got really weird and he was just always like, it was all stories about stuff like that, you know, like he'd need like special water stored somewhere else. So, like, Flame became kind of a bit of a diva in that sense.
He's always been a diva. As a close friend to Flame, he's always been a fucking diva.
Sure. But the other thing is, like, no, what I would do is, like, I even think there's mid laners in LCS that would be pretty good here. Like, let's have a look who else you have available here. Let's see. Well, you know what? I mean, obviously, like, this is just hypothetical. We're not talking about moves that will actually happen. Like, mate, if you just put Froggen instead of Pr0lly, this team would be better. I'm not hating on Pr0lly, by the way. Pr0lly's a good player, but that would be like a nice upgrade.
It'll be an upgrade. It could be an upgrade. It could be a side grade. It could be a downgrade. I don't think that's like a clear, like, bump up to FlyQuest. That's how I feel about a lot of the roster moves on FlyQuest. If I make this move, could it upgrade the team? Yeah. Will it take it to the next level? Probably not, unless it's a next level player. And also, there's a chance for a downgrade. FlyQuest they actually did an amazing job in terms of budget management, the players they got. Like, their management did a great job, but it's just such an above average team across the board. It's so hard to replace anyone, unless, like, you're getting an exceptional talent. Even like the Froggen,
they almost certainly won't either. Yeah. Like, if you look at the demeanor of the people in FlyQuest and the kinds of players they've recruited, they're not gambling on the guy with the big ego but who might carry the game. They're loving the people they've got now. So again, like I said about coaches before, right? If a coach of a 5th to 6th place team is going to be like, I think we could have won it, what do you think the team in 4th place is going to think? Of course they're going to think they can. There's no way they're going to change the thing now. Like, now that they're almost certainly going to make playoffs, they're definitely going to at least use this lineup for the summer. They'd have to fail pretty hard, in my opinion, before they're going to do it.
Oh, you know who's actually a really great example for a team like this? So the old Samsung Galaxy team, the team that turned into Gen G, the Ruler, Corey JJ,
yes.
Ambition,
yes.
Crown, and Cube lineup, it reminds me of, like, how I felt about them. They're a very solid team, good at team fighting later, not so much problem maker, but that team went over the board when Ambition, like, became insane as a jungler and Ruler became insane as an AD carry. Maybe, like, Santorin becomes extremely insane. Maybe Pr0lly has like a second renaissance, but this team...
Wait a minute. Why is Santorin, like, fucking half a decade into his career, just becoming insane overnight? Like,
Ambition did.
You know what? If you want, first of all, Ambition fucking has forgotten more about being a great player than Santorin will ever know, and had by about the end of season 3. But okay. Anyway, if you want Santorin to improve massively, here's what I suggest you do. Like, anytime you know he's gonna, like, leave his fucking team house, you need to set up, like, a truck to go by his house that, like, crashes and, like, you know, radioactive waste flies out on the floor or something, or you need, like, him to accidentally get electrocuted in some way that gives him, like, electricity powers or something. Like, there's got to be something drastic if we're going to make this guy even better. Not only that, how is he going to get better when you've said he has 9.5 out of 10 mechanics? Just to just upgrade the last 0.5, does he? He literally just all of a sudden, like, ooh, just goes into like an egg, like an Ivia style, comes out as fucking Faker himself. I'm now the Western Faker.
Well,
what is this shit?
I'll give you a parallel. Ambition got married to his longtime girlfriend, and then he powered up. That's what Ambition said. After I got married...
So he goes, right, I fucked up my personal life. Better make this professional career a success. Now I have to win worlds, motherfucker.
Santorin has a lovely long-term girlfriend. Maybe he does the same thing, and he gets married, and he powers up.
Yeah. And then she starts going, where's, you know... It was alright when you were a bachelor, but where's the fucking money at, Santorin? And then he's going like, and then he's literally coming in, coach, I need Camille this game. I got to get kills. I got to get that fucking MVP award. Like, listen, she's on my back all day long. Oh, I've got bills to pay. The mortgage is coming up. Like, we got to win some games. So he just turns into Dardock at that point in time. He's just going like, Fuck you guys. I need this win.
Let's go to Optic before we burn any more bridges. Okay, so I think we
I
already.
don't think you can burn bridges with FlyQuest though. They're just too nice, aren't they? They'll probably just be like, it's okay, Loco. You can say whatever you like on the show.
They're Team Canada. No, their GM, Nick Fan, though, we had him on the show before. He gives me hella shit. Anytime he sees me, if he gets a chance, he's like, oh, what about that power ranking you did earlier in the season? What about that power ranking?
Why did you have them ranked?
I have them like 8th or 9th, so he gives me hella shit.
That's not unreasonable if you look at this lineup. Like, you wouldn't think this lineup would be good, would you?
I was wrong, he was right, but they can definitely give me shit. Let's go to Optic. So, Optic's another one of... Okay, Doublelift is god-awful. I really, really, really dislike shit-talking players, like just openly shit-talking and being like, this player is god-awful, because one thing
I'll take care of that.
Yeah, usually Thorin does that. And I definitely think there's like, you need to have tact, I also want to kind of maintain relationship with teams, maintain relationship with players, and I never want to unfairly talk shit about a player, especially because I don't know what goes into the draft. I don't know like the kind of situation they get left in. Doko has been just fucking god-awful on winning matchups, on losing matchups, like knowing where he needs to be, CSing, just like basic parts of the game. Like there's been so many cases where I've seen Dokla make the wrong decisions. Like Doka is just, I think by far the worst player in LCS. Above Huhi. I think Dokla is worse than Huhi.
All that needs to be said is this. Every day, Solo from Echo Fox wakes up and goes, thank you that Dokla still plays in the LCS. And give us this day, our daily Dokla, and let him carry never. Amen. And then he goes off and plays knowing that he isn't going to get all the flame in the league because he'd be next to the fucking chopping block, that's like death row, and he knows he's next for the electric chair once they got done with Dokla. So it's like, it's just depressing because actually the sad thing about this team is because nobody could have known Crown would be as sick as he has been because he's been really good.
Yeah.
Everyone looked at the team, and I didn't even mind that they had a bad lineup because I was like, this lineup altogether is a failure, so whatever, just write it off. And in fact, even when Meteos and Dardoch joined, I didn't think of it as like, oh, I feel so bad for them, they're in prison. I was like, I'm just glad they got a team. At least they get to show you something. Whereas the sad thing is, now that you've seen what Meteos, Dardoch, and Crown all play in the league, you start to look and you go, this team could have been something.
One piece away.
You can't with it. Yeah,
one piece away.
There's nothing you can do. Because the problem is with that bot lane, got to have a strong top laner if you've got that bot lane. You've got to have a strong top laner. Like if they don't know it, but if this team could have got Haunts or something, now we'd be cooking.
Yeah.
Now we could have done something.
Arrow and Big actually haven't been that bad, especially Big. I think Big's so underrated because he's on he's on Optic and he made a really bad name for himself in earlier season. I think if you isolate Big's play, he's not that bad. It's just hard on this team, and I don't know. I can't even give him credit for shot calling because this team is not a team with great shot calling. So Optic is a team where I don't know a lot of information, but there's clear bright lights in Optic, and clear there's Dokla. You have Dokla, and you have Crown, and you also have Meteos up there, and Arrow and Big. Where do I put you guys? Like, you're not great, but you're also not put in great situation. You're not terrible, but you're also doing kind of average or below average. So this is a team where I'm very hesitant to make strong statements outside of Crown is good, Meteos is good, Dokla is bad, and rest is meh. Also, speaking of Meteos, one thing I do want to say for 100 Deep, for Meteos...
Let's be real though, by the way, the one thing about Optic, in all the other teams, we even had to these are just hypothetical moves, they probably won't do it, blah, blah, blah. I have to say, the most pointless player in the entire LCS is Arrow. Not as in he's the worst, he's not, but it's just no point. Why, he's an import. I doubt he costs a lot of money, but I doubt he's as cheap as some other players might be. And he doesn't really seem to add that much to the team. The team doesn't work well around him. So I think he's just the most obvious upgrade you could make entirely. I'm not sure who you'd get, but there's plenty of players I'd rather try than him.
I think Optic has a really, really straightforward off-season. Pick if you want Meteos or Dardoch. Just pick between one. Pick between Meteos and Dardoch as a starter.
Use the other as trade bait.
Use the other as trade. Just keep it on Academy, but let's be solid with our roster. Let's be solid with our 5. And then second step is look for top lane options. If you can get a good NA top, then you can keep Arrow for another split. But if you can't get a good NA top, import top and play Asta. So now you have, let's name any import top. someone that's like
not Flame.
Not
'cause he's
Flame.
not coming. I'm
Okay.
telling you, if you call him up now, there's going to
Yeah.
be like a fucking like a floral design phone case. Sorry, I stay in Korea. I like top lane. I go to Amon Gaming. You know, he talks like that, like in some mad effect. It doesn't talk like that privately, by the way.
Yeah.
But like whatever on camera.
let's
It's not going to be Flame. So who else is there you could get?
Let's
There's
say-
plenty of people actually.
okay, Schalke did make playoffs, and Odo Omne is someone that expressed interest in NA before. So let's say, for example,
Sure.
they get Odo Omne, they keep let's go spicy. Let's go Odo Omne, Dardoch, Crown, Asta, Big. Now that's actually a roster that can contest for playoffs, and
Yeah.
we can see what Big has. We can give Dardoch a second chance. There's a lot of great things going for that roster. So Optic's only one move away because internally they have NAAD that can replace Arrow, so they just need to find a replacement for top, and they already are shuffling between two junglers. They're like one step away from figuring shit out. Actually, one thing I realized is that would actually be a really good trade for Schalke in terms of we'll give you a Meteos, we'll give you a Dardoch because you're having problems with Memento, and give us Odo Omne and find another top laner. Maybe they won't do it because Odo's been a really good top for them, but that would be a trade that makes sense where both teams can benefit.
Sure. Because you know the funny thing is, in the past, obviously, the joke was it wouldn't even have mattered if Europe had have had the money to buy the NA players. It just never would have made sense to import them. Well, the difference is people like Meteos and Dardoch are the exceptions. Like they obviously are skilled enough. Plus, I even think if a player like that ever decides to do it as well for the cultural aspect. Just have a year in Europe, like get to experience something totally different in your League of Legends life. So you're not just in a team house in NA for half a decade.
Dude.
You can go to Europe for a little while.
Fuck you. You watch NA players, they don't even go to the beach. I've seen players live 5 to 10 minutes away from the beach
Listen,
and
man.
not go to the beach once.
Exactly. Well, if they come to the LEC, I can tell you right now, they're going to be hitting the clubs, baby.
Dude, LA
They're
has...
going to be hitting those clubs.
I'll say this. I've been clubbing, let's say maybe 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, but there's a flaw here, which is that I don't know if it changed, but like, don't they have that stupid ass thing still in LA where like
21?
2 in the morning,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have
yeah.
to shut all the bars down?
No,
What the
don't.
hell's that? Like, you want to stay partying till like 6 a.m.
Yeah, but if you're going to talk about clubs, LA clubs are better. And for someone that's been clubbing for a bit in LA, I haven't seen players until last year. Until last year, no one in LA was really clubbing or really doing anything. So I don't think they would even do much in Europe. Oh,
Mate, clubs in LA are unreal. Like, I can't believe how ridiculous Americans are. You'll just get completely brainwashed by culture. Like some of the people, some of the people who are talking about... In fact, you know what? You know the girl you referenced on the last episode?
which one?
What's her name? A Liquid Pyro, the one who did your
Yeah,
intro.
yeah.
She's one of those people who goes to like raves, and you should see, mate, what she wears when she goes to the raves.
Off
Mate, I can't even
topic.
believe
Off topic.
someone
Yeah.
leave the house like that. That is unreal.
I'm.
And it's just a vibe there. That's just what everyone's
Yeah,
choosing. I mean, it's like a party.
That's not a
Still-
club. That's more like EDC. That's more like. That's
Yes,
more
it's
that.
more
Yeah.
like
yeah.
a rave thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's-
pretty mental. It's pretty nuts, isn't it? Like that's the sort of thing where if you showed like if you showed some guy from like the 1960s that like this is what the kids are going to be wearing, he'd be like, get away, get away. Like society has lost its moral fiber. Like I'm just joking about it. I don't mind that. Obviously, I love the fucking photos, don't I? But I'm just saying,
I don't know.
not in my house, young lady.
I'm a good Christian. I don't believe in premarital coitus. I think everyone needs a little bit more Jesus in their life if you're going to EDC. Anyways, let's go back to Optic and let's talk about one super interesting topic that I did want to talk about was Meteos and Cody Sun. Meteos, Cody Sun, Meteos, Cody Sun. It gets brought up so much. Like 100 Thieves, you guys are idiots for what you did to Meteos, what you did to Cody Sun. And I want to fucking put a nail in the coffin for this shit because I think it's one of the dumbest perception the community has, and it's because Cody Sun and Meteos have a lot of fan base. So let's ask ourselves this. Let's say 100 Thieves are fucking evil. They're an evil organization, and they want to fuck over Cody Sun and Meteos, and that's why they benched them because they're evil and they hate Meteos and Cody Sun. Why in this offseason did Meteos only have one offer from Optic, and why did Cody Sun not get a single offer for an LCS team? If 100 Thieves are this evil organization that are trying to fuck over Meteos and Cody Sun, why did between the two of them they had one LCS offer? How, dude? or did 100 Thieves pay off other LCS organizations and whisper to them?
Well, it would be the opposite, wouldn't it? That's the thing, Loco. Bearing in mind, everyone knows that 100 Thieves doesn't want Meteos, and they don't want Cody Sun. If anything, if other teams wanted them, they'd be like, great, I can get these guys as cheap as possible. Like, the leverage is there, or they'll just let them go to my team. I agree.
Seriously, Redditors, Twitters, like League of Legends fans, like Meteos and Cody Sun. I mean, I don't want to. I'm in such a weird place because I don't want to shit talk players, but if they are that high of a value and they are that great of a player and they don't come with baggage and their skill level makes up for the baggage, they had one LCS offer between the two of them. Please use your brain.
I think actually, just from an outside perspective speculating, I actually feel like I know the reason why Meteos isn't going to ever be on top teams again, which is that, unfortunately, his worst quality as a person, as far as I can tell, is that he comes off as though he's too nonchalant. Like, he doesn't care. Like, if things are going bad, he's like, whatever. Yeah, it is what it is. And the problem with that is, right, that doesn't sound as bad as the person who's just straight up rage, like a Dardoch thing, who's just fucking going mad, like calling people names and stuff. But you know what? The guy who's calling people names, the one thing I know is that guy really cares. Like, even if he's expressing it in a really fucked up way, I could at least maybe think in my brain, maybe if I can be the guy who like tempers that a bit, then that's going to channel in a really good direction. He's going to be a really good player for me. But if I have someone where when they get into debates, they seem stubborn, and also remember the problem in Meteos' career, because he's taken time off a bunch of times. No one really knows if he's still committed to being a top pro. People feel as though at any moment he can just be like, I'll just chill. I'll just be a streamer now. I'll just play Academy. Whatever. Am I Academy? I am in the LCS. Whatever. It is what it is. Like, unfortunately, if you perceive someone to have any sort of bad like vibe with the rest of your teammates, that's a really bad attitude to have, unfortunately. Like, it's going to be really, like, I know he might not think of it himself, but when other people see that, they're gonna get the vibe like you don't care that enough, or that you're not committed, you're not bought into the system. It's like, even if you play well, you're just playing for yourself and you play like a bit of what we do, but like that, like, buy-in is so essential, I feel like, in the modern day.
It's really hard to get buy-in nowadays because like everyone's about themselves. Like, I mean, we are in like a millennial era, we are in like Twitter era, internet era. I can't even say, like, imagine League of Legends exists.
We are in the internet era, you're right, yes. That's why we're having this conversation.
We live in a society. So, I mean, in football and basketball, people compare, like, back then, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago to nowadays in terms of, like, what social media changed for players. Like, it's about me. It's about my brand. It's about what you're doing for me, not so much about the team. And because League of Legends flourished in that social media era, like, players have huge brands, players have huge say, and it's really hard to get a buy-in from a top tier player. I mean, the better you are, the bigger brand you have, more likely. So it's the better you are, the harder to get your buy-in is. So yeah, weird catch-22 where you do want a good player, but you also make it harder on yourself to get a buy-in when you do have a better player compared to when you have 5 rookies or 5 not the greatest player in the world.
Also, let's be honest, Dardoch and Meteos would not have these problems if there was a really strong set of NA jungle talent. But the problem is, because there isn't, these guys don't have to change. I mean, they might now, because you're right, if it hadn't been for Optic, they'd be out of the league, they'd be in Academy. But even then, I think people might have gambled on, like, maybe a CLG would have brought someone in last second. Teams might have gambled on them. The problem they have is they're just so good in different ways as players that at the moment they haven't had to change the problems that they've had. They've tweaked them a little bit because everyone, like, here's the problem. It's not that I don't say people can improve. People do mature over time and they learn life lessons. It's that unless something really drastic happens, you don't just like level up twice as good as a personality in 1 year. Especially not if you're just playing video games all the time. Like, you're going to do a little bit, but you're not going to go massively. So I think either, here's the thing, if they were playing in another region, they would either be on bottom teams, which I guess they are, or they'd be out of the league. Because if you have these attitude problems, people will give up on you real quick. And as Loco alluded to here, the reason other teams haven't picked them up is other teams have heard the stories and other teams have had players tell them what's gone on. So as a result, the other teams are like, we're not going to take a chance either, actually.
The thing is, like, other teams heard more stories than what's out in public. And that's what the fans need to realize. If all 10 orgs are saying, like, Saints, you make statements with your actions. When a player has a lot of offers, all the teams are making a statement by giving that player a lot of offers. When a player doesn't get a lot of offers, the teams are also making a statement, and it's saying you guys don't know the whole story. You guys don't know the entirety of what went on.
One thing I want to say about that though is like that is one area in LCS that I'm not a big fan of, is that too many LCS team owners, general managers think of League of Legends as like, we're going to have to be a very professional sport, guys, and we're going to have to be like, family friendly, and we're going to be like the good guys. We care about the core values of our organization, integrity, passion, dedication. Like they just say all this like middle management speak, like of a fucking like like a textbook for like regional manager of an office or something. The problem with that is, right, some people can do that. Some teams want to build themselves that way. I just want there to be one franchise in NA. It could have been TSM if they actually had the balls to step up to the plate. Bear in mind, TSM, you're not number one anymore. You're not the team that everyone wants to win because you're the best. This is what you do. You take the fucking heel turn. You become the evil empire.
G2.
You get motherfuckers in like Dardoch, and you're like it's like fucking what's it like DX out of fucking wrestling back in the day. You're like like that shit was NWO music, but you know what I mean. Like you go. We're just gonna get the most skilled players ever. Fuck like trying to be cool and like show people that we're like good guys or whatever. We're just here to win League of Legends games. If you can't win, get the fuck out the server. I'd go that way because that marketing angle, by the way, would pop off like a motherfucker. Like I'd have some tagline like "Don't tell your mother." That'd be my tagline. It'd be like TSM. You ain't gonna want to tell grandma about this.
What the fuck?
And then Meteos like, and then like all like blue Cloud9 blood's just spraying all over the floor. He's like, Sneaky, prepare your butthole. That's one of his catchphrases, isn't it? Yeah. Something like that. Not the prepare part, but, I was working it into the marketing, of course.
Oh my god.
And just go, yeah, Jack, I felt like you did a lot for me, man. But you know what? I feel like I don't owe Jack shit. So, I mean, that's straight fire. I could actually write this whole fucking thing. I might just go after this episode, start writing a fantasy fucking WWE like plot line for the LCS. It'd be pretty fire. It's not bad.
Dude, LCS, like, what is it? PR department has gotten so heavy nowadays. Like, you can't even...
Of course.
Teams that, like, the PR is fucking tight. It's...
Dude, that's why that things have loosened up in terms of the other regions, though. Because, in the past, it was clear that NA did have some influence over, like, how Europe did things, how Korea had to do things. LEC, I keep waiting for them to drop the hammer on Ocelot and tell them, you have to stop these tweets. Like, these tweets are really disrespectful. No one's doing it because they know that they have to have a different brand. And so they're going with the banter aspect. And what's good is they've actually managed to find a way to do it in sort of a safe way. Like, it's not that many people are getting their feelings hurt by it. It's kind of within bounds. But, like, some of the banter is outrageous, mate. Like, did you see that tweet Ocelot made? Where I'm trying to think which player it was.
Wadid.
Hiku?
Yeah.
Hiku from Rogue or whatever, right? When he was absolutely shit in the bed versus G2, Ocelot did some sort of a tweet like, I think Hiku is like our MVP for this game. Some mad shit like that, some like mad PM tweet. But like, I was loving it. I thought that's sick. But the thing is, in NA, that'd be considered up to the line. Like, you might get told off if you do that too many times.
If Andy said something like, what is it? Oh,
well, remember back in the day when he did that one where it was like, here's a picture of me with Doublelift. It was like that garbage. Which was fire, by the way. I can't lie. That was pretty funny.
If Andy says something like, oh yeah, Doublelift MVP this game, holy shit, Andy would get flamed. Like, it's been, NA's been so vanilla, and I love that you use trash talk. I feel like people can go even harsher. Like, I remember earlier in the scene, people went fucking in when we did trash talk. Like, there were actually like feelings involved, and it did get really personal. And while non-personal trash talk is good, I do love like personal, like actual beef trash talk, and I wish we saw a little bit more of that. Like, we know like people have certain dislike towards each other. Like, Jensen Meteos couldn't get along.
Dude, the only trash talk at the moment is like fucking Doublelift versus you.
Yeah, I know.
In the league. Like, that's whack. At least pick someone in the fucking league who can beat you. What are we supposed to do?
Yeah, trash talk.
It's bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. That's like, I think that's been like the biggest drama of this split. Like, me, Doublelift, or maybe like Zyrene going separate from Riot. Like, but like, we can't trash talk Zyrene going separate from Riot. Like, but like, what the fuck are we gonna do about me, Doublelift? Like, where does this trash talk end up? Like, I wish there were more like heated like trash talk. Sometimes Doublelift will trash talk TSM, and I fucking love it. And I wish he would do it in a more fire way and like more on stage way, like where he was like, yeah, I wish they don't win. I don't get why Doublelift trash talks on stream. Like, it's just as public as doing it at LCS or doing it in an interview. It's still gonna make Reddit, and you're still gonna get criticized for it, and you're still gonna get fame for it. Like, Doublelift is one of the biggest figures in LCS, and like after they beat TSM, like, just say the line you said on stream. They haven't won shit after I left the team, and they're not gonna win shit since I left the team. Just fucking say that line. You're willing to say it on
just
stream.
say the line, because I won't allow it. Just say some shit like that. That'd be gangster.
It'd be so fucking badass, and it would propel TL more, and it would give it more of a storyline. Like Pr0lly after beating TL, do you see how stupid you are, Steve? Like, money can't buy you. Like, you can have all the money in the world, but you're still gonna fucking lose to us. Like, look at our roster. What you pay Doublelift, that's our entire roster, and you're still losing to us. Like, Pr0lly dropping a line like that, like towards TL and Steve, like, I want like more fiery, like fucking spicy trash talk. And
dude, Doublelift actually had some that people forget about, which is when he just joined Team Liquid at the beginning of Season 8. I had him on one of those like mega episodes of Narrative where you know, we had like 10 people on to preview the season. And I asked him on that show, like, well, come on, Doublelift, like, you're famous for trash talking everyone. So are you going to give me some spicy trash talk about Bjergsen? And he had some that was straight fire, where he said that like, he would basically, you know, like the narrative of like Bjergsen being more passive. He said like there was some truth to that, because there was one point in a game he remembered where Bjergsen was like ever so slightly pushed in on his tower, and he just literally said to Doublelift like, yeah, I'm just going to be farming under tower and he can roam on every wave. And Doublelift was like, what do you mean every wave? He's like, yeah, just every wave. He's got priority now. And Doublelift's like, what the fuck? Like, at least try it. Like, and so that was actually straight fire. Like, that's so. You think I wasn't waiting for them to play next time? But he doesn't do that more than that last time.
Dude, like, NA beef is like, when I think NA beef, I think Hashinshin and Dominate. I think Mo and Tyler 1. Like,
Biggie and Tupac.
I think Doublelift and Loco. I think Travis and Loco. This should not be the NA's biggest beef. NA's biggest beef.
Wait a minute, Travis and Loco's beef? That's not beef. Come on.
It is beef. It is beef. But I'll explain to you one day. But like, anyways, like,
okay.
Someone's
been snaked.
Why is there no beef? Like, why is there like?
Dude, you versus if there's really a beef that I haven't found out about, if there's really a Travis versus Travis versus Loco beef, that's like this image that you can go on the internet and find where this really happened, where a fucking like python and like another type of snake, a python and a viper or something like fought each other, and then what happened is, you know, the python strangled the other one to death, and as the other one was being strangled to death, it bit the other one and poisoned it. They both just died. Like, that's like some snake on snake action. I don't know what you two did to each other, but you definitely snaked each other, both of you. I know it. I just know it.
Well, you know what?
Because let's face it, Loco.
Yeah.
You've got a lot better now, but you had a real problem back in the day where if someone fucks with you, you have to fuck with them like 10 times harder, right?
Oh, I still do.
You have to find your moment
I still do. And what is it? Even if I don't fuck with them in the moment, back then I was very rash about it. If you fucked with me, it's just in my head, and I'm like, I'm gonna fuck with you as soon as I get the chance. Nowadays, if you fuck with me, I'm gonna remember it, and I'm gonna wait until a certain moment where I can fuck with you the most and where it would cause the most damage personally, financially, career-wise, and then I'll strike. I've been much better about scheming and waiting.
Yeah, well done. That's what you do.
I learned.
It's not important to actually mature. It's just important to be smarter about how you get revenge on people. I learned that over the years as well.
It's, you don't just go at people. You wait. And you scheme and you plan and you build an empire.
Especially because, you know, one thing, this is actually a concept I took from sports, but it's so useful in life, is, you know, there's a concept, if you watch the NBA, you know this, it's a famous concept that in the NBA, if one guy fouls the other guy, what happens is when the other guy responds and like pushes him, he's always the one that gets in trouble, because the idea is, you know, the refs aren't really watching super close. So if you just get subtly fouled, if you then overtly push the guy, they're just going to think you started the fight. But it's like, that's what people do to you in life if they know you have a hot head. Because what they do is they like fuck with you a little bit, with you a little bit. And then when you overreact, like, fuck this guy, everyone thinks you're the toxic one. So what you have to do is you have to do what they did. You have to be smart. You have to bide your time. You have to set up like someone against them. You have to wait till the right moment. Obviously, the dream moment is there's some moment where they need your help. And they're just reaching up out of the fire like, please. And then you're like fucking Rorschach, like, no. And then just close the fucking manhole on them and like lock him in some, you know, some dark shit like that. But yeah, that's the dream.
Okay. Let's talk about League again. What do you think about Clutch?
This is a great example of a team where, because if you remember before the split started, I did think there was something to this lineup. They have some good players, and the sad thing is, only once it got to the point in the split where they couldn't do anything anymore did they start to show like some decent games, actually show some good performances. I don't know if it unfortunately is connected, like maybe not having the pressure of knowing they can't make playoffs made them think, let's just play free on these last games. But the last few games, they're starting to look pretty solid.
Yeah, it's still they turned it on way too late. They figured out Pr0lly on Irelia. Huni actually turned his brain on. They figured out things way too late.
Now,
yeah,
all sorts of stuff.
Ugh. They should have been what Fnatic's story was in EU. Like, we're a hype team that had a shitty start and we're fixing problems, but just a little bit too late. If they got their shit together a little bit earlier, I think they would have been a really fun team in playoffs. It's crazy. We're going to be missing talent like Huni, talent like Lyra, talent like Piglet in playoffs. There's no Piglet, no Huni, no Lyra in playoffs. That's a lot of talent taken out for LCS playoffs.
That's also, I guess, the thing that I guess is cool, though. You know, in past splits, a lot of the teams that were at the bottom of the splits were the worst teams with the worst players with the least money. So oftentimes those teams, even if they want to make a change, couldn't really, you know, they couldn't go and get some sick player. The good thing now is you just look already at some of the teams who aren't going to make playoffs. A whole bunch of these teams probably will have to go and look at real roster moves. They won't be able to wait a whole more split. And even if one or two of them do, some of them are surely going to gamble on. Like, I'm going to go ahead and guess already that like Echo Fox is going to get rid of Rush. There's no point, you know, get someone else or gamble on some, or maybe they'll make a purchase of one of the junglers from Optic. You look at 100 Thieves, obviously they have to do something. They really need to make a change. Like Clutch Gaming, if they don't make the playoffs, that's a team that I know we said about a lot of them, they're one move away. They're one move away from probably being good. They could actually be legit good.
The thing about, well, like, to touch back on like the playoff point a little, like Clutch and 100 Thieves being out of playoff, they take so much talent out of the pool to not be in playoff. It's crazy. Yes. I remember it was like LCK where like we were having like, what was it? Kingzone not make playoffs or something? Was it, or Kingzone not go to Worlds? I think it was Kingzone not go to Worlds, and then you're missing BDD, Pr0lly,
and
Gorilla,
then the year before, KT didn't go to Worlds. Same thing. They've taken all that talent off the board.
So when teams with good talent shit the bed, it's actually really bad for the league in the short run, at least. In terms of what were you talking about? People making immediate moves. Clutch, I think, is also Clutch needs to make two moves because of the mid and jungle situation. I'm repeating what I said earlier about Soligo or Huhi. Why does Clutch have an NA mid? And I'm going to preface this with saying I think Demonte is good. And I think Demonte is one of the better NA mids we've seen. I think he has potential to be better than Golden Glue, maybe as good as Pobelter, maybe a little bit worse than Pobelter. But same question asked again. Mid is the most important role. Mid is the most importable role. Why are you not importing mid? So you can have Lyra, Huni on the same team? Like, really, like, I think the most logical move for Clutch Gaming is actually Phoenix to Clutch due to all the friendship that's already built between Phoenix and Piglet. And you already have 3 Koreans, why not throw in a 4th? So
to start heading towards you know, what's so stupid about that as well is that is exactly the whole reason they made those import rules in the first place. So you couldn't make a team like that. And it turns out you can. You just have to wait like 4 years or something for everyone to get in a situation where they can all play. Because I would agree at this point in time, why not make like the all Korean team like that basically?
Because it has no future, but also the roster you built has no future.
A lot of these teams have no future, mate. A lot of these teams aren't going to have the same players in 2 years. Let's be real.
Yeah. But I'm not sure what the solution for NA mid is. There has to be a point where we do start using NA mid, but it makes no logical sense to use.
You know,
NA
I was
mid.
thinking about this the other day. Like, I actually think it's not just the talent pool. I think it's also one thing that sucks is the streaming angle. Because you know what? He made a point the other day, so I'll bring him up as an example. Someone like Voyboy, they didn't have to retire when they retired. Like, if there was no streaming, I reckon he keeps playing the LCS for a couple more years. The talent's strong. You know, there's a whole bunch of... Dude, you know how many times I see clips on... I I think it's either Twitter or Instagram. I'm not sure which he puts them on. You know Shifter?
Yeah, Shifter's good.
Dude, he is still a really skilled player. If you watch him in solo queue, I always thought he was one of the most wasted talents ever because he showed all that promise early on Coast, and then on Dig he was just like, he was just whatever. And I think part of it, sadly, was in stage games, it looked like he played a little bit more conservative than he should have done, like he was a bit like risk averse. But you watch him on solo queue, that guy has skill. Yeah. He legit could be in that starting LCS mid lane and out, at least, as a noob watching his stream. Like, I can't really claim to know what it's like in competitive, but he looks skilled.
Yeah, in solo queue, of course, he's going to look better than compared to playing in LCS, but Shifter's someone with skill, Voyboy someone with skill, and even players like Mo, right? He's a dead one trick. We lose a lot of our best players.
Yeah, imagine if all those guys were in academy trying to make it through. You'd have some really strong players.
We lose all our best players to streaming, and we lose upcoming talent to streaming too. So we're on the top of the field, there's people going into streaming, and from people that are supposed to go into the field, they also go into streaming. So,
by the way, obviously, it goes without saying, if there was no streaming, Dominate absolutely could keep playing. He's a guy like Score. He can just play as long as he wants, mate. Dominate could always be an LCS level jungler if he puts his heart and mind into it.
Okay, I said Mo, and then people are fucking saying, because I said Mo for Zed, but Mo's actually a Yasuo player. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying Mo can play competitive right now, but I'm saying in a different reality where Mo never became a streamer, and the effort he's putting in to make good content, that effort goes into making himself a better player, making himself learn different champions, because it is a lot of effort to be a streamer and to stream every day and to put into hours. Just imagine those hours are put into improving yourself. Then Mo potentially could be a good mid laner. So yeah, that's my overall problem with NA. We lose so much talent to streaming, and it's not even bad. I can't even fault people going to streaming.
No, I don't blame them at all. It's like I always tell people. I said this on the episode. It was about like women in gaming or whatever. It's like the problem is you can't recommend to anyone to be a pro. It's something you've got to really want to do because it comes with so many downsides that like unless you're really into it, the upside isn't going to be there to even it out.
Yeah.
Like if you have the skill to be an okay LCS player, but you don't want to be a pro, you should be a streamer. That's the ideal job for you.
Yeah, like I mean TF Blade, like that's another great example. Like so like in Korea, when you have top solo queue talent, they become Tarzan, they become Chobi. Like for us, they become a streamer. Like our best recent solo queue talent just turned into a full-time streamer. So and we have the least player pool also. So what the fuck? Like fucking NA. What are we gonna do?
No, because people don't realize like streaming isn't the same kind of big deal for Koreans. In China, it is only in the context that like, obviously they have massive stations, but then you've got to be a pretty big name. Because you think of some of the people who've gone to the LPL. Like I always think that shows the drive that some pro players have, because some of those guys are risking that they'll never make it. They'll just be stuck on some shit. Like remember, some of them don't even go to the LPL. They go to like the LDL, the one below it, the development league, and some of them have like been able to win their way out and like prove themselves to be really good. But what a mentality you've got to have to do that. Think about how few NA players would have that, because you don't have to. Because if you're good enough, you can probably already go pro now or go academy, or you can just become a streamer. You never have to leave your house until you become a pro. You never have to take a gamble, take a big risk, potentially look like an idiot and have to come back 2 years later and your family goes, oh, so what happened when you were in China? Oh, I never made it. I was stuck on a team. We had a bad lineup. Like, you never have to do that. Oh,
holy shit. I thought you were going to go towards me.
No. I mean, you did take a leap as well. Like, here's the thing. You don't realize it, right? Because, again, I get it. If you're a coach, you're so focused on the goal. You've got to believe things are going to work, You've got to, like, hype yourself. The thing that always tilted me, right? And this is the reason why I've always thought it's bullshit. Like, even though you did win that bet that you were going to win the split or whatever when you first joined TSM, the part that you never acknowledged, which was bullshit, was, do you remember that point? It was like 3/4 of the way through the split. And at the time, there was like a mad tie for second place.
Yeah.
I think LMQ was first. And it was like Cloud9, CLG, Dignitas, TSM. It was like there was a massive tie for second place. And at the time, there was this really crazy stat, which was that of the teams that were tied, TSM was one of them, but you guys had the least wins against the other top teams. All your wins were like farming the bottom teams. So at that moment in time, add that to the fact that when you got to the playoffs, like the Dignitas series, even though it was 3-1, was still very close. That could have been 3-2. The LMQ series was really close. It was 3-2. And the final was 3-2, decided by a crazy crit sequence.
Yeah.
Like, there's a world in which You go out first round, you go out second round, you lose the finals. Like, so many options. Like, of all the options, you actually got the best possible one, pretty much. So
for sure.
If that had gone way worse and you got out first round of the playoffs, we have no idea where you are now, Loco.
I think I would still stay in coach, and we'd probably play Gauntlet, and I think we make Gauntlet. But of course, yeah, the TSM run definitely boosted my career, and it gave it gave life to my coaching career. So
sure,
I'll take credit where it's due. I'm
not hating.
Yeah,
just saying,
things could go a lot of different.
There was a lot of alternate universe options for that one,
Oh, give me 1 sec. My roommate's outside, and I have to let her in. Give me one.
Yeah. I'm sure it's almost the end of the episode now.
Yeah,
right?
We talk. Wait, we always miss the team. TSM, TL, 100 Thieves, Cloud9, Optic,
Echo Fox.
FlyQuest. Oh, Echo Fox. Let's talk Echo Fox and let's end.
Oh, we also didn't do Golden Guardians.
Oh shit! So let's start with Guardians. While you have more energy.
Right. Yeah, let's do it.
Well, for Guardians, I mean, I don't think they're gonna make fourth, so I think I'll still win the bet. But I think I also said this last week: 2 super solid pieces, Froggen and Hanser, and 3 really inconsistent pieces, and we have to see where these players go and where these players develop. I don't think Ole is going to be a long-term piece for them, and it's really hard for me to make a call for what they should do with Deathly and contracts. They really need to see how they play through playoffs, because both players have been so up and down, and they need to stabilize. Like, you can't have these inconsistent players, and it's only an excuse towards them because they're young. Deathly or contracts are both like below 20 or 21, so they're extremely young players. So we'll give them a little bit more leeway, but they need to start stabilizing.
Yeah, like, first of all, being as I've obviously flamed him all the other weeks, this was actually the first week where, in a while since I saw Deathly have a good performance, like, he had a nice little pop-off. Okay, congrats there, but he obviously has been, like, even calling him up and down's a bit unfair, because it's been a lot more down than it's been up. So it's like, it wasn't a 50-50 on that, but I agree, he's been up and down. The problem is, I also agree with you on that sense. Like, I wouldn't just cut all these guys, but I think you have to pick one of those two. You have to pick which one out of, because remember, the good thing is they're both young and they're both NA. So pick which one you want for your team, and you're going to go with long term. If it's contracts, okay, let's get a new bot lane in. If it's going to be Deathly, then let's get someone who can work with Ole. I do think, though, Ole is in the same spot I said about Arrow. It's like, listen, he actually does have skill as a player. I don't fully write him off, but after seeing the way he's played in this team, it's not worth an import slot. Like, you were talking about some of the other players, fucking Big, Vulcan. These players have played better than Ole, and they're not imports.
Yeah. Ole's name shot up so much during the Immortals into TL era. Holy shit, like, it went. He was like, he made finals, and then he won twice on TL. Like, his name was just way up there. And I actually started doing this with Daniel, and I think it's a great way to trash talk players without trash talking players. I would describe him as a great guy. Yeah,
there you go.
He's a great guy.
It's like that's the joke, isn't it? It's like if your friend goes, "Oh, listen, man, I want to go on a date with this girl, but we have to do a double date though. Like, can you come along and meet her friend? Oh, what's she like? Oh, she's got a great personality, man. You're gonna really find she's really funny as well." It's like, right, I'll do it this one time, but like, I've got to be home by 11, and I'm not fucking around with any of this shit. Like, you're not going to be fucking super psyched, are you? Yeah. Exactly.
Ole's also a great rapper and beatboxer. And
I don't know about that. Half the time I see him, he looks like fucking B Rabbit at the beginning of that movie, where he's just choking like, "Oh, I know what I should do, but I can't. Shit, what the fuck am I doing?" He's just failing, isn't he?
Yeah, but there's a lot of nice guys. Ole, Dokla, Huhi. A lot of those guys, I'm gonna stop talking about their skill level, and we're gonna start describing their personality and other positive aspects. So, I wanted to ask you, do you think Golden Guardians have or go ahead.
Oh, you can ask what I was going to say.
Well, or do you think they have a chance to go into second round of playoffs?
Well, that's the interesting thing, because since they actually, first of all, they're not guaranteed to be in yet, but they are one game ahead. So basically, if they win like a game, they're safe. And if you look at where they are right now, there's a world in which they end up going in with the 6th seed, not the 5th seed, right? And obviously, if they go in with the 6th seed, they play TSM. First of all, if you've seen the 2 games they played this split, that'll be a fucking good series. That actually might be a pretty good series to play.
Do you like them better versus TSM or FlyQuest?
like, here's the thing. In theory, they should have a better chance of beating FlyQuest, but actually FlyQuest seems to do pretty well against them. It seems like FlyQuest match up pretty well. I know they obviously have to play them like, I mean, don't they have to play them in this one of these last games?
They got...
Yeah, it's the last game overall.
You know, last time they played TSM was last weekend, and they got smashed. That was the Haunter... That was like Haunter getting his face kicked in.
Yeah, that was one game.
So... I do agree with you. They probably have a better shot versus TSM.
You know what? There's one thing we have to talk about, right? Because Haunter is a player who doesn't understand his own identity as a player. Like, he believes he should be the main carry. Like, he thinks he can carry the whole time. What are you talking about? It's like, it's not a meme. He's really good on tanks. And here's the thing, with players like him, my view is this. Most of the time, we should be picking you one of the good tanks you're really good on, and let's win the game, right? Certain times when the matchup is right, like we can get you this specific champ into that, you can play a carry. Like, that's when we'll let you do it. But if you see the games where they just let him straight lock in like some of the carries, your heart sinks if you're in the draft that you're just like, oh god, right, let's load up for this one. And it's like it's like you just start pouring yourself a really big glass of wine, like, well, I need this motherfucker.
Haunter?
He becomes a really nice guy. What can I tell you? He starts to lean too heavily on that awesome personality he's got, doesn't he?
He does have a great smile. But
of course, yeah. He needs to cut his hair, though. That's fucking whack. What is that? Some like 60s mullet or something? It's dog shit. Get that haircut.
Haunter, I don't think Haunter's terrible on carries. I do think Haunter's exceptional on tanks. And right now in the meta, a lot of times it is better to play carries. And I think Haunter's he's second best player on Golden Guardian. So
yeah, of course. He's a pretty good player, but I just think sometimes he's a bit off with where he's at as a player.
He is.
I don't blame him though. It's not like the bot lane's going to carry, is it?
Yeah. His problem is his hubris and like his confidence and his cockiness. A lot of times it's just, I thought it would work. I can see him just saying, I thought it would work, or I thought I had
Here's
this.
the weird thing about him, right, is when I say this, people are going to think, I mean, he's really obnoxious. He's not that way, but in a way, he has sort of like a bro mentality. Like, you know, when you have like bro science and stuff, like, yeah, dude, look at this shit. I'm just getting like games and shit. It's like, he's kind of like that. Like, I'm not going to say he's dumb, but he's not really smart. And I'm not sure if he knows where he is in between the two.
All right. Final talk, Equifox had a pretty good weekend. They might actually make...
Who knows how, but fair play, they did. Who knows how.
They might actually make playoffs. I still don't think it's likely. And I also, this team is... they're suffering from what FlyQuest is suffering
Dude,
from.
imagine how depressing the playoffs will be if Echo Fox beats Team Liquid in this next game.
Oh.
It'd just ruin the whole playoffs, wouldn't it? That'd be too much, wouldn't it?
Equifox is suffering from the same problem that FlyQuest is, where all their players are similar level and no one's really replaceable. They're a very well-balanced team. It's just that they're well-balanced in a much lower tier level. There's no one that's exceptional. There's no one that's absolutely terrible. As you talked about with Solo, you still have players like Dokla behind them. Apollo Hakuo, probably above Solo in play level, but not exceptionally up there. Same thing for Phoenix and Rush. They're just like average or below average players. So even if I make one roster move, right, this team doesn't suddenly become really good. They become like kind of good. I need to make multiple roster moves for this team to be exceptional and really fucking good. And that's my problem with it. And still some credit to management, especially if they make playoffs. You guys probably had the smallest budget. You probably are spending the least on your players, and you're still not last. So congrats for that. But it's also a very boring lineup to talk about. We talk about Rush. That's about it. We talk about Rush is back. They won some games, but it's still very boring.
Yeah, that's probably the worst thing about this team. It's like, you've already heard when we've talked about some of the other teams. It's bad enough if you're a really good team and you're boring. If you're a bad team and you're boring, well, now I have zero reason to give a fuck about your team. Like, and then you look at even the players they have. Like, again, if you're going to have a bad team, I at least want to see someone pop off. I at least want to see someone like, for example, I'll give you a great example of a bad team that was actually entertaining. You remember the terrible fucking Renegades lineup where they brought in Freeze, and the whole point was the lineup was shit. But if Freeze got Draven or Freeze got a lead in lane, for 5 minutes at least, you had hype, right? You were like, holy shit, he might be able to like carry some of this. I didn't, whatever, they lost the game. But like for that first 10 minutes, it could be fun still. An Echo Fox game, it's like I'm waiting. It's like if you Echo Fox is like if you went to the movies, you sat down with your popcorn, and it was just only trailers the whole way. And you were like, when's the movie come on? It's like, nah, it's trailers. It's like, and then at the end, like, oh, well, see you, everyone. Off you go. It's like,
I'll give a funny Rush story since we have nothing to talk about with Echo Fox. So I talked to Rush right after he had the Jarm Fist Guardian Angel Rush game on Jarvan, and I told him, like, why the fuck are you building this shit? Like, you should be building Ninja Tabbies, you should be finishing your Warrior enchant, you should be finishing Thunderhawk enchant. Those are the most gold efficient items on a jungler. We talked about it a little bit on Dom's episode, and Rush was like, no, these are better. And then right after that, he got benched, and his replacement built Ninja Tabby into jungle enchant, or the upgraded smite item. And then when he came back in and played Jarvan again, he actually went Thunderhawk into Ninja Tabby or Merc, so he did the build that I asked him to do. So when he was coming up to press room to do an interview, I asked him, oh, you built the correct items. He's like, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this. So next week I'll talk to Rush and I'll see how he rationalizes his item build. Rush is one of those players that's too smart for himself. He overthinks things, and I'm not quite sure why he's in NA. He's not here to. It doesn't seem like he's here to perform as much, and it doesn't seem like he's here to like be on championship rosters. Maybe he's here to stream, but even if he's here to stream, he wouldn't have that long of a time due to army. So, because Rush was someone that gave up.
Maybe
streaming.
that's it then. Maybe he thought he'd give it one last year before the army.
He gave up streaming to play in LCK and be a sub and be on a good team like KT. Like, he made sacrifices to be a good player, and then all of a sudden he's giving up those sacrifices and coming back to NA to stream. Like, so that also is a disconnect for me. So Rush is a hard lead.
Dude, even though now obviously his game's dropped off a lot and he's not really on the right team for himself, like I feel so bad when I saw all those tweets where he was like really worried about how he talks, because dude, I think he has the sickest voice ever, because he talks like an anime villain. He's like, Loco, I know you want to go in jungle, what the fuck do you think I do? It's like, so he just, and even like in the way his mouth goes, he just looks evil. He looks like the enemy he's the antagonist in a fucking anime who's like the genius kid from the rich family who's like, I'm gonna fuck you up, Loco. It's like, and you're just like, I hate that guy, I want to beat him. It's like, I love it though, it's straight fire. If you're out there, Rush, don't ever change, mate. It's the shit. I love it.
Well, Rush is super intelligent. He went to one of the most prestigious colleges in Korea. So there are 3 colleges in Korea that are on a different level. They're called Sky. Seoul University, Korea University, and Yonsei University. I think he was Yonsei or Korea. So my dad went to Korea, and then most of my family is from Sky. So I always get a lot of shit for never going to a Sky University.
But you went to art school, so there is that.
Yeah, but it wasn't a Sky school. Like, there was so much expectation for me to get into a Sky school, and when I didn't, oh my god, we'll talk about that some other day. But yeah, Rush is from a really good university, and he's like a super intelligent person, where most people view him as like a memer or he's like a funny person. When you speak to him in his native language, he's super fucking intelligent. I feel the same way for Reaper and Lust. Like, a lot of people think I guess Reaper is known a little bit more for intelligence, but especially Lust Boy. People are like, oh, Lust Boy, you're such a memer. Oh, Lust Boy is so hilarious. Lust Boy is funny in Korean also, but he's also very intelligent, like, and super soft-spoken, and he only speaks whenever he has like super important things to add, and it doesn't come across in English, and he just like sounds like a funny dude, and you would not peg him to be intelligent, but I would peg Lust Boy to be one of like the more intelligent people involved in the scene.
Well, very wholesome end to the episode.
What did you think about the 2-man episode?
I thought it was all right.
Yeah.
The only problem for this one was like it wasn't the sickest week to talk about, really. And like a lot of the storylines kind of like collapsed a bit, so that was the only downside. Like, if it had been a more fire week, we could have gotten way more into the actual games themselves, you know.
I'll get LEC guest for Thursday, and then we'll do an LEC episode. But yeah, I actually enjoyed the 2-man episode a lot. I feel like we got a lot more in depth, and I didn't have to worry about like the guest speaking and making sure like the guest can like come in and speak and like balance stuff out. I was just able to talk, so I actually really liked the 2-man episode.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. Let's end it on this.